It's the Bennington Show. I'm Ron Bennington. There's Gail Bennington.
Yo.
You know, I'm at the point now where if I hear anyone as our opening song, I worry there's been a horrible accident or a heart attack. I'm like, is everything okay with Arcade Fires?
What's the news?
Is Win okay? Somebody check on Win. Check. They are killing rock stars one after another. Thanks, Obama. Thanks for protecting our rock stars from ISIS.
You know, he promised he would.
Did he, or was it just the soul R&B song? Wait, I'm sorry, I did Anthony's show yesterday, so I'm a little on edge.
That's all right.
That was actually a lot of fun. You don't know how lucky we are not to be working in front of a camera all day, though.
Oh,
Changes everything.
You know why? It's nice to slouch once in a while.
Yes.
Just kind of sit back.
Yeah, you're very
nice.
right. No one ever has to sit here and go like this. Is my nose huge? I think it's huge.
No one's ever mentioned it before, but now I'm looking at it. Is it?
Or is it too small? I can't tell from here.
Or just doing this with your neck, like, should I just push my head out farther?
Yeah,
What's better for the head?
There's all kind of model tricks.
Tilt to the left, a little forward.
I saw somebody, one of the producers, quit on Good Morning America, and they were, retired. And they're like, he was such a delight. He had everything ready for you with the interviews. You knew that you were covered. He had all the questions. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. All you guys care about is how you're sitting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not the topic at hand.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure that I have all the things I need to say. So I'm really focused on
not having lipstick on my tooth or having a weird false hair. Just one little hair is out of place, and those people have a bad show. But if they have a great interview, no one cares.
I always notice on late night, like, you can see the people who, like, the only thing they can focus on is, oh my God, this is a really weird angle that this camera's at.
You mean the guest or
the guest?
Yeah, the guest, sure.
Because, the host is covered by a desk, but they're all fully exposed.
Yeah, which I never understand how women go on those shows with a short skirt.
They always do.
You can see that they go through this thing, but the downside is that the slightest mistake and your cunnies is exposed.
Exactly.
From coast to coast.
And they butter up those legs. Have you ever noticed
how grease legs,
they grease up the legs? I guess to just say, oh no, my legs are just naturally very oily and shimmery.
There was a Blake Lively grease up on Letterman that Amy Schumer had later done on her show.
Yeah.
And the bit was, you see this girl in this really tiny skirt with buttery legs for some reason, talking about how I'm a nerd. And I just and basically the audience is just coming, just buckets and buckets of jizz because a fucking hot chick is married to Deadpool.
That's definitely an ugly duckling.
I don't know what it is. I mean, this seems weird, but I like playing with Legos. I could just sit.
I love her.
Yeah. And put Legos on my big tits. But, Amy actually has the beautiful stems, and she's a funny chick.
Yeah.
So no one knows exactly where to put her. I guess the place that they put her now is just full tilt attack. She's doing well. Let's attack. There's a piece up on the iBang today that a bunch of comedians accused her of stealing jokes. 2 of the 3 are friends of ours. Ant brought this up yesterday to me. I don't know, enough about it, but I know that all the ladies have deleted their tweets.
Interesting. Do you think that it's a regret thing, or do you think it's just, okay, I didn't realize this had legs?
Well, yeah, people don't realize, like, you could be on Twitter and you're just fucking around with 4 people, but then that can suddenly be seen by the whole world. So for a half an hour, it's just us. It's the mean girls talking mean about the girl who's doing okay in life, right? Oh, look at her. She thinks she's great. Yeah, but this happened. But then before you know it, it gets picked up by all these news things, and you're like, that wasn't the purpose of my conversation.
Right.
you could do a show like this and you think it's just us, right? And then you just out of nowhere, you're like, someone should kill. You know what I mean? Someone should kill Hulk Hogan. You don't realize that someone could take that the wrong way. And just have radio show is calling for murder of beloved wrestler. And you're like, I was just joking. I don't not like him, but I don't, you can't get out of it then.
Right. Just like a conversation among your friends, it feels very different. Sometimes, even though you're in a public setting, it might not feel like you're broadcasting it to everyone, but you are. You truly are.
You are.
Or like if we just say something about any celebrity and then they're like, Gail just said this about this celebrity.
Tweeters.
I hate it.
Yeah.
They don't need to know that I didn't like their last movie. Why are you saying that?
Right. So now now you're in a situation of, what if that celebrity was sitting in this room? How would I do it? But
I loved it.
Yeah.
Did I say hate? I mean, I hate it because it's so good and I couldn't get it out of my head.
But what kind of fucking, people just run out to tweet something to someone else?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Why do they do it? Or, even when they say a positive thing, it can be embarrassing too. Like, turns out Gail loves you. It's like, the
tweets that they put up were definitely, let's bust this shit open. Let's fucking,
We're posting videos.
Yeah, let's tear it down. And then agents, right, probably, and managers have to say, you're fucking with someone that Comedy Central is in business with.
Right.
And do you want to be in business with Comedy Central? Then take your stupid fucking tweets down.
Oh, okay. So it's all connected.
Everything is connected.
Gotcha.
Do you ever want Apatow to come and love you?
I do. I truly do.
Shut up. So that's and then, other people look at it, but like, oh, no balls. But they were just so, despite what everybody hears about the lack of gatekeepers thanks to the internet, there's still gates that you'd want to get through.
And you're trying to.
Yes. But so you can't be totally as honest as you want to be if you also want to go through those gates.
Yeah, having balls is good sometimes, but it's not always the smartest career move.
I was with Dave yesterday, and he hates Chris now.
Oh, really?
What? I thought they were best friends.
They were.
Guess not anymore.
Chris wouldn't make the move with him. And Ann said, yeah, what's with that guy? And I actually had to say this. Well, he's a drunk drug addict who gambles over his head. And then we all had a nice laugh, and then we got out of it that way. But those are just, those are just the balloons surrounding the fact that all the balloons are tied to a piece of shit.
A shit balloon?
Yeah, a shit balloon.
It's a hot shit balloon.
Like, it seems good when you look at the balloon.
Oh, the balloon part's great.
But then you look
fun.
Down. What's that shit? Is that shit?
Well,
Holding
what
that
happens
balloon
is
down?
if you want to hold the balloon, you're holding shit.
Right. And I do want to hold the balloon.
Then what you're saying is I want to hold shit.
I don't, though.
Big pile of shit.
One of the girls actually put this. So many more, but nobody listens. At least Cosby knocked his victims out before he raped them. That's such a funny line. You know what I mean? It's like
really
a
funny.
fucking line that I plan on using against my bosses at least 6 or 7 times this year.
Definitely want to jot that one down.
But
at least Cosby knocked his victims out.
But I do feel like I have been in meetings with people who have raped me. I'll go so far to say dry rape me.
Oh, not even spitting?
You're disgusting.
Chris!
You make everything more disgusting, dude. You make everything more disgusting.
I just want, clarification.
By the way, Chris gave me a story today, and I hope we didn't put it up this way. Let me see if I can find out what he initially wrote. It's really disgusting and horrific. All right. He said Down syndrome's people, which is far away for him. Like that's him being good.
Right? Okay.
And he writes, Down syndrome people may be going extinct. And I'm like, why would you say that?
Well, that's because, all right, so there's all these prenatal testing or whatever. They can see if someone has if the fetus has Down syndrome. So 90% of the time when they find out, they abort the baby.
Does everybody have that done now?
I think. I mean, but
I didn't know it was up to that many people had it done.
I'm not entirely sure if that is a special test that happens or if that's something that you can detect in, say, an everyday kind of run-of-the-mill.
I know everybody that Sarah Palin knew ahead of time that her baby was going to be special needs and then said, of course I still want to have this baby. And we're not talking about Track, the one who got in trouble yesterday.
Right.
Oh, God, no.
He surprisingly is not the one. It's hard to tell.
He's a vet. Maybe he's got vet problems.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know what he saw over there or whether he left like that. But basically, I guess he had this big automatic weapon after he had hit his chick.
Yeah.
And the cops fucking showed up. I think he had it up to his head. Saying, you think I'm a pussy and I won't do this. That's not what we even grade pussy on. You know what I mean? Like in the kind of dude bro way of saying who's a pussy and who's badass.
Be a pussy, bro.
Yeah, we don't put shooting yourself on either level there.
He's not even suicidal, dude. He's not a man.
But why would you think this is something we would talk about?
I mean, what's wrong with aborting all the Down syndrome babies?
Here's something I'll tell you. I have a friend who is a special ed educator. She's a teacher.
She don't want to lose her job.
No, first of all, yeah, that. But she was telling me, she was talking about this phenomenon of people aborting when they can tell that the fetus has Down syndrome. And she was saying to me that there are certainly a lot of health issues out there that she could understand that you would not want to bring a person into this world who was going to live with these types of issues. However, she feels that Down syndrome is very misunderstood and that she feels like it's a blessing to have somebody with Down syndrome. And I know people who have people with Down syndrome in their family and they feel like it is a blessing to have them in their family. And it's not specific to some of the higher health risk type things that you might want to do something.
But you also worry about having a child that can't, what happens after I'm gone?
Of course. That's one of the,
yeah.
And if that child has a sibling, when you pass away, you're essentially saying, this is your
Then I'd feel good about it.
responsibility.
If I knew that there was a sibling, so I could take care of him. But yeah, I would say, look, this is a lifetime commitment that you made that you're going to have based on my decision many years ago. But I will say this. I remember when I was a little kid, there was a lot more people with Down syndrome than you see today. And harsher versions of it.
Yeah.
Because I went to school, there would always be a class of those kids. And unfortunately for us, it started a jealousy thing because they were always taking class trips.
Right. They got to go to the zoo a lot, you said.
Zoo and other things. I don't know, just out to the park or whatever. And that stuff can get to you when you're a non-Down syndrome kid. You feel like I'm constantly doing math and it's difficult. And there they are, happily going off to another fucking trip. So I'm going to bring it up. I'm not going to let it go.
But I get where she's coming from. If you have ever spent any time with someone with Down syndrome, they have the biggest hearts and
there's fun times.
Yeah, it's incredible. But maybe like what we were saying is maybe when you find out, when you get your test, maybe what you need to do is talk to your 5-year-old, your 6-year-old. When I pass away, this is something you're willing to take on.
Yeah!
Fine! All right. He said, yeah.
I'll tell you, one of the best days of my whole life, there was this guy, and he was like an older dude with Down syndrome, but he used to come around the school and stuff like that, and he rode around on like a big heavy bike for some reason. It was like a big outdated bike. But our halftime show at our high school, there was like a kind of a step ladder that the band director would be up at the top of it. And while the band was playing, this guy climbed up there and started directing the band, and everybody was going crazy and loving it. And then the band director was like, I need to get up there. Can you please bring him down? And everyone was like, let him stay. Let him stay. And, it was like so much fun, but he brought a lot of fun to our community because, like, literally everybody knew this dude.
Yeah.
Like, didn't matter where you went in my town, everybody knew this dude and had nothing but fun feelings about him. He would check in on people. But that kind of thing is kind of, gone because I guess people kind of stay in now anyway,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying about bringing fun because there's something very, there's something childlike and youthful and very sweet.
Yeah, you even watch the movies, you know what I mean? Like when Sean Penn played and stuff like that. That it's a three-dimensional life that you're bringing. It's not like a two-dimensional life. And people get really upset sometimes if you refer to those people as individuals. They'll be like, oh, he's, got this. And you're like, he's still a dude that we know from the neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, We're telling stories that are fun. But I guess, I can understand why, people are like, oh, that's just not something I want to deal with. But as, technology goes along, you're going to have people going, I don't want a kid who maybe is not going to excel at sports. And I don't want a kid who isn't going to be like good at calculus. And you're going to be able to find out those things. And that's
coming.
That's Gattaca.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the world that I grew up in, Gattaca.
Now this is just the beginning.
Here's Mike in New York. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Benningtons. I know with my wife, we have 2 sons now. She was offered a test to determine whether babies had Down syndrome or not.
Yeah.
And we chose not to take the test, which involved, a needle into her canal, basically removing fluid, because it didn't matter to us either way. But yeah, we were offered that. We just, decided against it in our case.
All right, so it's up to you whether you want the test taken or not.
I just got a message from a birth worker, a doula that I know, that amniocentesis is not done unless there's extenuating circumstances or it's an older mother. So if you're older and you're up in age, they wouldn't even offer it to you unless those specific reasons.
Well, my wife is 28 and she was offered it. So maybe it's different in certain areas, certain practices.
That's Chris. Try to be drunk and funny. It's all drunk and funny, isn't it, Chris? Not everything is losing, football bets.
I know.
This is a little more of a serious conversation we found ourselves into. Joe, Santa Cruz.
Yeah, morning, buddies. $1 million except for Pepper because he just gambled it away. So we've got a 21-month-old son that has Down syndrome, and we were the test that the previous caller was talking about. What we were offered was a blood test for the mother, so it's not invasive. It's not the amnio test. So it's pretty safe, but it's like 90-some% sure. So we got the results back when we had the test that told us, hey, your son probably has Down syndrome. And then what the doctors presented us with was you'll probably want to go ahead and get the amnio test to be 100% sure before you terminate. And the way it was presented almost felt like they were saying, yeah, you're going to terminate, right? Because why would you continue?
Well, I guess at the 90%, you know what I mean? Like when
9 out of 10.
Yeah, when 9 out of 10 comes in, they just assume, majority. But you guys, you were happy with your decision?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to comment on your earlier comment, Ron. I had the same realization or perception that when I was growing up, there were a lot more Down syndrome people in the neighborhood or people I was exposed to. And when we were diagnosed and started researching the condition and understanding all the statistics, it's almost sad seeing how happy and delightful our son is and his demeanor that it is increasing in termination.
Well, the thing... We've got this thing now in this country, and I don't know where it kind of started, maybe in the 80s, where, you know, it all became about excelling. But we've given up the fact that you kind of need something of everything to have a life. You know what I mean? There's going to be the funny kid. There's going to be the smart kid. There's going to be the shy kid. There's all different kind of kids. For some reason, we want to change everybody now into being this, hey, headed for college, Joe College type of kid, and he's good at sales, and he brands himself, and he's marketing. But that's only one type of person.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Got to have diversity. My wife and I were laughing. I was telling her the other night, you had commented some weeks back about autistic kids weren't autistic when you were growing up. They were just referred to as the weird kids, which is what I remember as well.
Well, there was a kid. He was actually my friend's brother. He used to walk on his toes everywhere, right? And he knew what time the ships were going to go up and down the river, and we couldn't figure out, you know, what he was doing. But when my parents had a fireplace put in our house, and he came down and counted all the bricks, and was talking with the guys every day about how many bricks went in. Nobody knew about autism. We didn't get this thing at all, and we're just like, he's doing his own scene. But
right.
that guy to this day has his own house. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
same exact perception on my side.
Yeah. So at the point, like I said, he was someone who brought something to our neighborhood and brought something to the whole scene that made it a little more interesting. You know,
right.
I certainly wouldn't want to live in a neighborhood where everybody was some kind of Joe College boy. It would seem like the most boring thing in the world to me.
And you're right. Even the idea of saying that that a parent has this desire to push their kid into this idea of what's normal. Like, even if you were to say to your friends who had kids as well, oh yeah, my kid's gonna do this and they're trying to go for this school, and you're like, yeah, my kid's not into that.
Right.
You would look like a bad parent.
You look like a bad parent. And like what we're saying now is the new normal is excelling, right?
Right.
So you want to hear, like, all of a sudden you hear about some 5-year-old who reads on a second grade level. Like, we're supposed to fucking care. Look, first of all, second graders are still idiots. So stop acting like that's a big fucking deal to me.
Also, I think that stuff is made up, and I don't think it's necessary. Like, just because you excel at a certain age, I don't necessarily think that means that you'll excel as an adult. Like, I think that you have various degrees of ability to learn or whatever, and perhaps you were smart for an 8-year-old, but maybe you middle out once you're 25.
Again, what does smart even mean? Does smart mean that you've remembered a bunch of facts? No big deal. I got a fucking Google on my phone now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's no longer smart. You know? That doesn't mean shit to me. That you know when fucking Ponce de Leon fucking landed. That don't mean shit. That used to be a big fucking deal. That fucking dude was like, that guy's got everything.
No.
This motherfucker knows shit. Now you're like, but while he's thinking of it, I'll fucking Google it. It's nothing. I don't know what they do with the kids in the school. I mean, really, once you got a calculator, what the fuck are you doing sitting around trying to figure out this?
I literally felt that way in math when I was a little kid. Like,
Yeah.
we have calculators, and we didn't even have the internet that way.
Well,
so, like,
first, yeah.
so just the idea that, like, I could buy a device that's going to tell me, so we could just skip over this subject.
Well, look. I mean, the second someone come up with matches and a lighter, starting a fire with sticks is no big deal. Now, at one time, that was the most valuable dude you could ever know.
Oh, yeah.
And if you didn't know how to start a fire with sticks, you would die. But once you get a fucking lighter, you're like, fuck it, I'm not sitting around rubbing sticks all day. I use this. When it runs out, I go get another one. Here's Glenn, Nova Scotia. Glenn.
Hey, buddies. You know, Ron, it's funny that you and I are around the same age, but we had a guy die this week at 58 years old, Down syndrome guy in the little town where we all grew up, and he was very much a fabric of our childhood. He was at every Little League game. He was at all the horse events and any events in our town. He was there, and he was awesome, and he was very much a part of what we were. And it was really sad this week when he passed away. And for some reason, that seems to be gone. I think people with Down syndrome, we don't see them in the community anymore, but he was allowed to roam, and he had no trouble. And he was a really sweet guy, and it affected people from our town this week to know that he had passed on. Frankie McDonald, same town that Frankie's from.
Yeah.
And it's the same type of thing. He's very much a fabric from. So I don't know about this thing about being able to tell before birth and what that's going to mean to society, because they were very much a positive part of our upbringing.
I agree 100%. And Frankie McDonald is a really great internet version of that we all go before there's a new storm and we check to see what Frankie has to say about it. And that is a connecting factor that we can all feel something with. But you're also right that no one feels safe letting people wander towns, whether it's kids or even teenagers. I mean, people now will say, well, I don't want my teenager going out walking around because somebody might think that they're trouble and shoot them or something. You're like, oh, that's really, sad. But I don't even, like, this sounds weird to say, but there are homeless people that in my neighborhood that sometimes everybody becomes connected to and checks on. And then people are like, well, why don't you help them move somewhere? They don't want to fucking move inside. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know what the right thing to do, but the cops will take them to the shelter and they'll leave and they'll come back and they'll go stay underneath the same tree. And people in the neighborhood just end up checking on them and looking in on them. There's a movie up this year from England where a guy let this woman sleep in a van in his driveway for like 20 some years. You might think that it's crazy, but it's still a life. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's still a way to live a life.
One option.
Well, yeah. Don't you want as many options as you possibly have?
And to what you were saying too about if this is the beginning of, being able to control what type of child you would have, whether that means, okay, I know I want a kid who's really smart, so maybe you're going to start looking for certain characteristics. If you actually started to think, okay, what would a perfect human be like? You're going to get rid of not only types like this, but you're also talking about anybody who is a creative mind tends to be a little off. And pretty much every genius mind we've ever had in history would have probably shown some signs of, either learning disability at early age and stuff like that.
Because they don't learn normally. You know what I mean? Like, those people don't think. And then you find out, like, you would take a guy like Tesla, right? And he would just be staring off. And you'd be like, that dude's a weirdo. He's always looking, just sitting there looking up. But what he was doing was like building an engine in his mind before he attempted to do it in real life. And he would sit around and do that for long periods of time. If that guy was in your family, you're like, I can't fucking stand Tesla. You know what I mean? I can't have a conversation with this dude. I ask him to help me. Yeah, I fucking say, could you move the couch? He fucking sits there. So I'm not going to put up with him anymore. I'm done with Tesla. But that is our thing. There's this new thing that we want all the kids to be the same kind of kid. I remember Gail obviously was an outgoing kid. When we moved to New York, she went to a high school of theatrical arts. You would get to that fucking school. These kids were so theatrical you couldn't stand them. It's fun to have one or two around. But when there's 30, just in the hallway, you're just like, I can't fucking stand going over to the school.
Spontaneous singing.
Yeah. But breaking out like, hey, I'm doing a funny boy. And you're just like, not everybody. But if one kid is doing that, you're like, you know what? That Joey's a lot of fun to be around. But you don't want 30. Joey's, it's too much. Here's Pat in Virginia. Pat.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
Hey, my wife and I are having a child in 3 weeks, and he has Down syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a non-invasive test on my wife's blood, and it's like a $2,500 test, but our insurance covered it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something it's available to some people. If you're of an advanced age, your insurance will cover it. But, that's what we did.
And you guys are happy and excited about what's
Well, no, I know. I mean, it's been really, it's been quite difficult. I mean, my wife cries quite a bit about it still, but I think once we get the child out here, it'll, everything will be a little bit better. And plus, the support services that they have for these kids now are a lot different from when we were kids.
Right.
And so they can live more independent and, fulfilling lives than the kids that we knew when we were in school.
Right. It's certainly going to be, a different life.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and a certain degree of independence, too. So
right.
I don't know that we necessarily have to worry about taking care of our child for our entire lives if we do a good job in the first few years.
Well, best of luck to you, my friend, and give your wife our best as well, okay?
I will. Thanks a lot, Ron.
Take care, man. Okay. Here's David in Alabama. David.
Hey, yeah, man, I just want to know, because it's something I kind of pondered a lot, why you never see any Amish people with kids with Down syndrome. Have they, figured out how not to have them, or do they got them all in, a big hole?
Well, I don't, you have to understand that the data that you have is seeing people from the street, so you don't know how many Down syndrome. I know that that they say that because of, I don't want to use the word inbreeding, but there is a small community that dwarfism runs very big with the Amish, I've read. But I can tell you I've never run into an Amish dwarf every time I stop and buy produce. They're probably somewhere else on the farm.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. I have heard the same thing, and come to think of it, I don't know.
The two things that I've always read is that dwarfism runs big with the Amish and the six finger, the extra finger.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I knew one six finger guy in my life, and he was fascinating because you would say at a party, "I'm really drunk. Would you do me a favor and count his fingers?" And people would not. They would think you were doing a trick. He just had an extra pinky that went out, and he had it on both hands.
What?
Yeah.
Could he move it? Could it move?
It kind of moved as one piece, but didn't move the way your pinky does.
Okay.
Because it moved along with his pinky.
Oh,
they were
man.
attached. Look, I'm not going to claim that I understand how the nerve system works here. Or why, as an adult, this is hilarious to you.
It's
you know
badass.
what? You would have been great in the Middle Ages. Because that was what we were talking about. This is what's so weird. This would have been considered, any kind of birth defect in the Middle Ages was considered comedy. A person with a club foot, they would just come out. The king, the court would just crack up. That guy is great, And that dude would make a living out of being the dude with the club foot. Now, of course, we see that as just absolutely ridiculous, but I don't know if you could have, maybe that's the way we'll cure comedy in the future. You know what I mean? And they'll, in the future, they'll say, at one point, people with dumb, rambling thoughts were considered comedy, and they would just go up and talk about their stupid ideas, and everybody would laugh.
Mostly about themselves, just their own experiences.
Yeah, they're worried about male pattern baldness and small penises.
Oh, the small penis jokes. They went on and on.
Yeah, I can listen to that forever, dude. I really care how big your dick is. All right, there is a new, what's considered a mental disorder called Infomania.
Now, Infomania is literally the obsessive checking the internet, social media, and I feel like pretty much everyone has this. I don't know if, do you think that it's really a disorder that is?
I think if it's keeping you from doing other things, that's when it becomes a disorder.
But because it's so new, don't you think that it's literally, maybe it's just, we still are adjusting as people? I think it might be too early to call who has infomania and who doesn't.
I see, here's the thing. This is how life works. I remember being a little kid, And I was close with not only grandparents, but great-grandparents, right? And they could not believe that we sat around and stared at a box in our living room and laughed and got mad if something good wasn't on. They're like, don't you realize you're missing live? We're like, but this is live. And, in hindsight, they're right.
Sure.
You're seeing people who know like this info thing of like, I've got to find out. But what are you really learning from it? Here's a list of 8 things that, mean this, or here's a list. I don't know if you're getting true information.
Yeah, it is weird because even if you're in a conversation and you feel like you're very much in the moment, it's amazing how quickly people will kind of peel off to get the answer to what you're discussing. So if you're sitting in a group of 4 people and you're all talking and then somebody poses a question, even if you don't do it, someone else is going to look that thing up or give you more information on it. So it's almost like unavoidable.
Well, what's the cat that looks like the guy from Star Wars is the newest thing?
The Kylo Ren cat.
Yeah. You just said cat.
Cat.
It's a little cat. Now,
it's a cat.
Aunt brought this up to me yesterday. And he said, have you seen this? And I'm like, no. And we sat and looked at it for a second, and then we went on. He was kind of amazed I hadn't seen it yet. And now 1 million people have sent it to me since. I don't know what I get out of this. I mean, I guess I'd feel, it's up on the iBang. It does look like Kylo Ren, or what's the actor's name?
Adam Driver.
Which, I'm going to tell you, someone SNL. I don't get this fucking shit at all.
He fucking blows. He looks like he acts like he has autism on that show Girls, which was his first role.
Why are you attacking autism after we just sat around?
I'm not attacking it.
Talking about how you're everything wrong with everything. You really are.
His acting abilities are subpar.
I will say the cat does look like Kylo Ren. It does.
It really does.
It does. It's pretty
but
eerie.
What does that get any of us? Why am I
a moment's pleasure?
Why am I checking my phone all the time?
You know what? It's one thing. This is the weird phenomenon about the internet. So you see somebody post this cat, and they're like, this cat looks like Kylo Ren. And you have this moment where you're like, it does look like Kylo Ren. But the weird part is then you're like, have you seen the cat who looks like Kylo Ren? That's the weirdest part of it, is that, it's not, there's no value to the thing that you've experienced, yet you want to share it.
Yeah,
like you want to
get credit for it.
What do you mean you haven't seen the Kylo Ren cat?
You're insane. Hold on, here's Maria in Texas. Maria.
Hey, Ron, love the show.
Thank you.
I work with kids with autism and other, diagnoses and everything. I've worked with kids with half a brain, even for seizure disorders. And my concern is all the high-functioning autistic children who they're going to have that excuse later in life where they might, autism is the designer diagnosis now, where if there's something wrong with your kid, it's autism.
Yeah, and now that they're saying
there's really nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, they're starting to say there's 1 in 56 kids or something crazy like that. But but it's just not true.
Because they've increased what autism is. Autism used to be a social disorder, and then they added, now it's a communication disorder. And now it's just like, if your kid walks on his toes, he's got autism.
Right.
When really it could just feel nice.
Well, I'll tell you this. Those kids always have the best calves that you'd ever want to see.
Oh, yeah.
And
they have
incredibly
fantastic calves.
Yeah, they're really, really fast with it. But who's the, one of the thing, and I had her on the show, the woman that ended up working in the cattle industry.
Temple Grandin.
Yeah. She kind of blew the cover off of, hey, maybe there's a real positive thing about that. But a lot of kids, there is no, what from our vantage point would be a positive thing, right, Maria?
I mean, I personally see that there can be a positive from it. I mean, if you're like Temple Grandin, I mean, she's obviously, she has her PhD and everything, and she's really, really, really good at what she does. And there are even companies like out in Germany who will only hire autistic people because they are so hardcore focused on what they do, and they're so passionate about it. And that's just their personality. That's who they are. You know, they don't have these other social pressures or anything that distract them from from their work. And so I can see how it can benefit them in that way. But then you go to like lower functioning kids or lower functioning adults who, I mean, it's not as much of a advantage as we'd like to think it would be.
Right. And of course you have to find the right lineup with any of those things anyway, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
See, the way that I think all the time, I think would probably alarm most people, because I never have the kind of thoughts of, hey, I hope everything works out with Chris, or I hope I get those papers back to Don the way he asked for. I'm always in another kind of weird stratosphere that works exactly right for the job that I end up having.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But most jobs, this would,
right.
I would be the same way I was at school, which would be considered less than. You know?
But I think it's interesting how she said that the idea of diagnosing yourself can hold you back, because then you have this thing and then it has power over you.
Sure.
And yet, I think it's human nature to kind of want to figure yourself out. You know, it's like the same reason those silly little quizzes always do well on websites.
Everybody's ready to say I'm a Pisces, so that means
and
you're like, what does it?
But that's something that's really interesting. Like, you learn something like that when you're young, right? You learn about your sign and the zodiac. And who's to say how much of that has to be like, oh, that's me, I've figured myself out. And then you just start to lean towards those characteristics. Maybe all of those things, anything you could have a slight, type of characteristic for. Yeah. But when it comes to saying, oh, I'm bipolar, or, that's me, or, I'm anal retentive, or whatever the thing that you've decided your personality is, it becomes a crutch for you to lean on.
I can't believe how many
that's
people.
What I worry about with those high functioning kids who may have been misdiagnosed is, oh, well, I'm autistic, so I can do this. If I want to scream about whatever in the grocery store, it's okay, I'm autistic.
Right.
And I worry about those parents kids who are diagnosed as high-functioning autistic, when really it could be something else. It could be ADHD, it could be ADD, it could be, Lord knows, it could be...
But even those things, it gives people,
Oh,
yeah.
But I would like to have like what Chris Stanley is with that bully syndrome, where, he's ready to look out and call an Adam Driver, things that actually belong in a certain, classification. Where now it just becomes a negative because a Chris Stanley or an Adolf Hitler got their hands on it.
Yeah, and the other thing about autism is it's so broad. Now it's called autism spectrum disorder, which can include a whole bunch of other things. That now includes Asperger's kids.
Oh,
God. If you have been diagnosed with Asperger's back in the 90s or whatever, you now are considered to have autism spectrum disorder.
Right.
So now that's why that number has gone up, that 1 in 56 kids or whatever it is now. Yeah. That number's gone up because they just put more kids into it, and that just causes more fear and anxiety, and then more parents are like, well, I think my kid might have autism, when really they might just be a weird kid.
Yeah,
and
and guess what? Sometimes weird kids start bands or businesses, or, Like, being a weird kid is not a negative.
Yeah, weird kids are freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
I love weird kids.
I'm always looking to hang out with the weird people anyway. I always have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
But aside from even education, knowing that you're ADD, or knowing that you're dyslexic, or whatever the specific thing, I think it stops even serving you as an adult. Like, maybe there's some value because you're trying to figure out what's the best way to reach this child and teach a child.
You know how many times I told people I was dyslexic just so I didn't have to read the assignment? I go, I can't. Dyslexic.
Very dyslexic.
Learn from listening while I'm talking and drawing band names. That's how I... Look at this. I just did the whole Aerosmith thing.
Oh, that's good.
I would say it too, but I think I might have just been a really bad speller.
Well,
and now spell check.
Yeah,
and
now you have
everything's
spell
fine.
check. All you got to do is get fairly close.
Yeah.
I get embarrassed when I can't even get fairly
Oh, that's
close.
the worst, and it happens to me more than I'd like to admit, where autocorrect is like, I have no idea what you're trying to say.
I couldn't spell disappear yesterday, and I felt really bad about myself.
What couldn't you spell?
The word disappear.
There's like some easy words that, like, for whatever reason, I've never learned to spell them.
Right.
I spell them on a daily basis, and I still can't get it right.
And what's the word that you can't spell, Chris?
Disappear.
Look, I don't care if you can spell it as long as you can do it. And we'll just get out of here. You know what I laugh? I like to look over and see, like, Joey just smile to himself like the guy who beats me up all the time is getting it.
Yeah.
He's mean to you, right?
Mine is decision.
I've seen it.
He asked me how to spell it yesterday, then he goes, never mind, I got it.
Mine is decision. I don't know what it is. It seems easy enough. But decision is something I respell 5 times before I get it right.
No, well, here's an interesting thing. So there's a Target cashier who went viral by being nice to an older lady. This is the world that we live in. That this guy is now just being treated like a wonderful person, right?
Mm-hmm.
When that used to just be called Southern. You know what I mean? Like, in the South, this is the way people would raise their children to grow into the type of people that would be patient with other people.
Oh, they're folksy. They're nice.
Yes, they're nice. Like, let's take our time. I see that you're having trouble. This young man basically could hit the lottery if he did a Kickstarter. They would just give him a bunch of money now for doing his job.
Yeah, his job would be to be and also not just your job because you're working in the service industry, but just generally what it takes to be like a decent person. But the fact that it went viral, it wasn't until later I saw the story, I was kind of, looking into like, that's kind of a weird thing that this is a regular person. But then I started to wonder, is there some sort of thing that because he's black that they made a bigger deal about it? Like, it almost seemed racist. Yeah, like, oh, he's a young black male. Can you believe that he's such a nice person?
No, no one's actually said that, though.
No,
right?
but I just feel like that for me.
Like, if this was a white girl.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that this would go viral.
But so it's like, hey, you think this is a thug that's going to kill you, but look how nice he is.
I'm like, yeah, he seems like a nice guy. Totally.
But we're not that far away. Everybody would expect everyone to act this way. And I think what really was the beginning of truly accepted assholeness in America is the way people act in their cars. The way they scream and yell at each other in their cars in the way that you would never do to somebody anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're in a different environment than that person in their car.
Now, as a pedestrian, I feel that all the time. Like, anytime someone is behind the wheel and they're acting like an asshole or like they beep because I haven't walked fast enough or something, it infuriates me because I'm like, I know you wouldn't yell at me if you were outside of your vehicle.
Right.
I know for a fact that you wouldn't do it. It makes me go fucking crazy. It's one of the things that drives me nuts because I'm like, I'm out here in the real world and you're in your own bubble.
Your thing, you now have to not be driven nuts by it. You should see it as some syndrome. You know what I mean? You have to look at somebody in a car the same way that you would look at somebody who was like a crazy street person.
Right.
Because that's what they're acting like.
Yeah.
But I find those people, like, I do judge them and think this is who their real gut reality is, even though I might be wrong about it.
Right.
When I see someone yelling at an older person in their car, I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Or someone who
raised you.
Yeah, speeds around someone while cursing and say like,
what is wrong with you?
Drives up the wrong side of the road to pass someone while they're screaming. Like, death is a better option for you.
Here's
than
what
being
you want to
slightly
say.
Later.
By the way, you're not a 2,000-pound metal object. You're a fucking little creep.
You're just flesh and bone.
I'll tell you who I would say to their face that they're too weird for me is that Holderness family.
Oh, God.
They're everything I hate about the internet right now.
They're everything I hate about everything.
Really?
Yeah. Everything.
About America or just
America, families, white people. I don't know. They're just like, they're the
worst of the whites. You know what I mean? I would like to just say, even to other white people, this isn't us.
Oh, God.
Exactly.
What they're doing is a parody of white people.
Yeah, like when other races feel the need to explain that certain stereotypes are not true of everyone. That's how I feel about the Holderness.
But I don't
like,
even want to tell it to Asians. I wanted to tell it to white people and say, this isn't us. They're trying to paint us this way. No, just play a minute of this. All right, let's just stop it for a second. First of all, don't act like you're not cool because you're fucking 40. You were never fucking cool. And you're making your wife act like some spastic, strange person from another planet. There's no women who dance like they're never that out of touch.
No one could be that out of touch.
She's just rubbing her tummy and just gyrating. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
I like making really like an obnoxious faces on purpose.
Hey,
like,
look,
isn't this unattractive?
They said turned because they're white. Get it?
Ugh. Yeah. Yes, you're right. The 40 is the least of your problems here. Age has nothing to do with how incredibly uncool you are.
I feel like vomiting.
Also, aren't we over calling 40 old? Haven't we decided?
David Bowie just died at 69. He was cool as shit. You know what I mean?
And the Holdersons are still fucking alive?
That's not the point of this.
They deserve death.
They don't deserve death, but they never were cool. And they're just selling this bullshit back to other people.
They're shit.
Just play another minute.
Just because we gotta know.
I'd stop it again. Here's the thing. I mean, that guy's going to be a douche no matter what, but she could be hot.
Yeah.
Under the right guidance.
She's throwing it all away to be with this scumbag. He's a scumbag for real, though.
This is her life.
If Obama would do something with his executive powers and have her taken out, not drone strike, but just have her taken away.
Take their children away, at least.
No, drone strike those kids. Those kids don't stand a chance. I think a wife
They've already ruined.
Yeah. They grew up with this dude.
Just human garbage.
How are they famous? What did they do?
They did. Okay, they had their first big viral video was the one where it's like Christmas jammies. Wearing Christmas jammies. And then that, for whatever sick reason, people started sharing. This was like a couple years ago.
I got a prediction about these people. They're going to end up on Shark Tank. And they're going to come in and say that this is their business.
We're viral video consultants.
And that's what they do. That is their business. It's crazy.
If they were on Shark Tank, who would buy into their company?
Fubu would buy into it, I think. I can't remember his name.
I know it isn't Fubu. Joe, who would buy in?
Cuban. I think Mark Cuban would.
Oh, God.
I think he's cut from the same cloth.
You think Cuban acts like that?
No!
In his private life, he has a TV personality as well.
There is no private life for any of those people.
I think that guy who likes dogs, I don't know what his name is, but he always sits on like the far end.
Yeah. What's his name? He's the
Canadian guy, right?
Yeah.
He's a tech savvy one.
Herjavec.
What's his name?
Herjavec.
All right, here's my opinion of Herjavec, no matter what it is. Here's our product. We're going to pass it out. Well, this is delicious.
Yeah. Well, that's why I feel like he would be the one.
Oh, I'm 40, so I want to buy into this. Now I'm going to give you $100,000.
Because this dude, every time they come by with a product, he has like a huge smile on his face. Like, what? This is cool. Like every time.
What? And is Robert, right? This is
Robert, yeah.
The funny thing. So he'll go like, all right, I'm going to give you everything you offered and more. $125,000 for 5%. It's more than you wanted. And they go like this. Any other sharks want to say anything? They will take.
What about the old lady? Is she in or what?
Anybody but that fucking dude. No one knows how he made his money, and no one trusts him. Everybody immediately wants to go with QVC girl or basketball man. Unless of course.
What about you,
black.
basketball?
This down to like a love-ridden thing with Jenny Hutt, like the song Love Ridden, because now it's gone from stopping in to waving to just the sad smile.
Oh,
oh not baby anymore. But you're not going to do it from the Nun thing. You're not going to do it because it goes on forever before you get.
Takes a while to get to that chorus.
We better take a break here. When we get back, a lot of stuff going on, but also business that we want to get into, and that's exploring shipwrecks. Here's some good news. Less than 1% of shipwrecks have been explored.
Sharks. What do you think of my new shipwreck exploring business?
Are you ready to dive into the water with profits? I hate when they do
Let's
that.
just hope it's shark-infested waters.
Of money and profits. What
are your sales?
Water. Get it? What are your sales? Well, last year we did $18, but next year we're projected to do $125 million, and 3 years from now I have us projected to do $17 trillion and take over South America. Now, which one of you sharks?
What is this based on? What are these numbers based on?
Treasure.
This is crazy.
And they also bring up stuff like shit that really doesn't matter, like, aren't you tired of going into a buffet at a restaurant and having it smell like a fart? Like,
yeah. I guess so.
And then, like, two of them will be going back. They'll be doing that.
My anti-fart machine only costs 45 cents to make, but it retails at $700.
Well, I like those. I like that. That's nice.
Sharky like it.
No, we haven't sold any. And it doesn't work. But
we need the money for research.
Which one of you sharks wants to lean over, spread your ass cheeks, and let me insert this fart machine into your bunghole? That's Shark Week. By the way, has anything been named Shark and it's not successful?
No.
All you gotta do is use the name Shark and it works.
You're good. All those Sharknado movies.
Yeah.
It's awful. People love them.
What about Shark Mouth? We got a break here. We'll be right back. It's Bennington Show. We're just hanging out here before the blizzard starts. I'm looking at some of this stuff. I know Don has to go back to the D.C. area. He's going to get it worse than us.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
D.C. and Baltimore are going to get it worse than it looks like upstate New York. But how do we even know that? I don't know. I can't trust Obama anymore. I'm trying to reach Donald Trump through my Palin contacts that I have now that they're together. Did you watch Palin last night?
Yes.
It was so great.
Yeah.
But, you could see that the heat she had 8 years ago is a different place. So not only did I watch her do it, I turned around and saw, Fox News and MSNBC must be going crazy. They didn't.
No.
They were just acting like, now he's got Sarah Palin. Even Fox, not getting along with Sarah Palin. And some of the shots apparently that she was saying up there were at her and some of the old Republican Party people. So, I thought it was a major endorsement, but all the TV news places were playing it down.
Yeah, I've been wondering as we get farther along with this thing, who are going to be the people who align with him and endorse him, because he clearly moves outside of that party. It's very clear he's not necessarily.
Palin's perfect for him.
Yeah.
And what if they went on a ticket together? That would be stunning.
Yeah.
To see those two lined up.
World's craziest ticket.
I am in. I'll actually go there I'll get a tattoo probably. Joey Jojo, you're from Minnesota, right?
Correct.
Now, you just sent something into the iBang about the greatest American band. Now, let's go over this. Who is the greatest American rock band of all time? Now, if people would say, what's the greatest band of all time? What's the greatest rock and roll band ever? It would take us a long time before you got to an American band.
Yeah.
We would be Beatles, Stones, Who, Kinks, Led Zeppelin, probably Pink Floyd. Where do you get by the time you're an American band?
I don't even think top 10.
You don't think there's a top 10?
As far as greatest rock bands, the first American band, I think, just off the top of my head, not even in the top 10.
Wow.
Heartbreaking.
That's pretty weird, especially because you associate rock and roll with American culture, and yet...
Well, look, if we were going to do greatest rock stars, we got it. We got Elvis.
Yeah.
Right?
Done.
But he's not a band. If you did biggest stars of all time, it's Elvis, it's Michael Jackson, it's Madonna. We're much more as a single act than we are as a rock act. Now, who put up these polls? It was more than one place?
Yeah, so it was in light of Glenn Frey dying.
Glenn Frey
dying. And
if Glenn Frey died, no one would give a shit.
Yes.
So the point would be, is the Eagles the greatest?
Yes. So CNN reviewed this poll that USA Today put out 10 years ago in 2005, where they asked their subscribers to vote for what they thought was the greatest American rock band of all time. So then CNN put out their own poll based on region.
Well, all right. Before we even get into this, a guy from the Daily News yesterday, he put out an article saying that the Eagles were shit on the day that Glenn Frey died. Saying Glenn Frey died, but let me tell you something, he came from a lousy band. And, of course, people were furious, and you have every right to. I don't think it's the thing that you say the day someone dies.
It's terrible.
Yesterday, the day before it happened, sure, have that conversation.
You can do it all you want. but let's, a person died, he has a family. Now, he wrote a return piece about this. He says, of all the things that he ever writes about, abortion, guns, blah, 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 this got the most heat, anti-him than anything. But he also said that Boomer and Carton, who are a sports show in New York, they made the point, whoever sells the most albums is the best, which I think is absolutely ridiculous.
That's crazy.
That's the kind of shit that gets you stuck on a sports show. Because if you said, who sold the most hamburgers of all time?
McDonald's.
Is there anyone alive who thinks McDonald's makes the best burger ever? That would be insane. All right. So this is regions.
Yes.
Now, if you wanted to, I'm wondering whether we should just do our own thing and then go to see whether we match up.
Let's do our own.
All right. Who would make our short list? For me, the Doors have to be on that list.
Yes.
Aerosmith has to be on that list. Now, let me ask you this. Are Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, would they be considered bands? Or, going back to what I said, solo artists?
Wow. Because Bruce Springsteen didn't even cross my mind because of that reason.
Right. But Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band is a different project than Bruce Springsteen. I mean, it's a different sound completely.
Yeah, let's throw them in because it is.
Who would make yours?
May I dabble in subgenre?
Dabble any way you want. No one can stop you now.
The first band that came to mind was the Ramones.
The Ramones. They're, to me, a rock and roll band. You don't even have to debate that.
Okay.
What about for you, Chris?
Nirvana jumped to the mind.
Nirvana jumped to the mind.
Nirvana.
Nirvana jumped to the mind. Where did it jump from? Is that a basketball player just walked by us, or just
very tall,
very large man?
Very large man.
All right, Vito, I see you standing up. Who would be there for you?
I'm going to say that Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band is a band, and I'm going to choose them as my number one of all time.
It certainly is a Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band is definitely a band. All right, let me just take some of these calls. Scott in Detroit. Scott.
Yeah, I'm going to go with, hang around. I'm going to go with the Pretenders.
Well, the Pretenders is more of a British band than they are an American band.
Yeah.
In the same way, you know, I mean, you have the lead singer and songwriter is American, but the three guys in the band were all British. This is also the problem with a Fleetwood Mac.
Yes, that's which, a half and half.
Yet, until they got those two Americans, they never sold the kind of albums that they did before.
And their sound changed a lot once.
A lot. Not so bluesy, is it? Here is Mike, Canada.
Yeah, I think Tom Petty and Springsteen have to be disqualified because I think they've got such a strong identity as when they've done their solo stuff. It's still really focused on Bruce or Petty. So I would include, although I think they're both fucking incredible bands, the Heartbreakers and the E Street Band. But my first choice right off the bat was Aerosmith, just because I think they've got all the rock and roll, rock star essentials. I think they could easily outplay a band like Nirvana or the Ramones, but they've got a lot of the same kind of edge to them.
Well, there's a lot to be said. By the way, Mike, since you're from Canada, who would be your Canadian band?
I would say probably not my favorite band, but I think the deepest band and the best, like one of the best live bands I've ever seen, is the original lineup of the Guess Who.
All right, that's an interesting call. We might one day want to do Best Canadian Band because there's a very, like, one of the things that we run through with GPS is where's the center of the Canadian sound, you know?
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to pull off. All right. All right, Phil has got somebody that didn't make our list, and it's crazy that it didn't. Go ahead, Phil.
Ron?
Yeah.
Hey, I have this conversation all the time with a couple of good friends of mine. We go back and forth, but it's down to Creedence Clearwater Revival or the Beach Boys. Timing.
First of all, the fact that they didn't even make our original brainstorm is interesting because that's crazy that they didn't. Creedence is an unbelievable band.
Yeah.
And the Beach Boys is the California sound. You can't get around that. That every version of the California sound since then starts with the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
You know? The Eagles have to have the Beach Boys.
Yeah, like and I wonder if maybe it's because of their kind of almost poppy beginnings that people don't think,
well,
like, it doesn't.
Lyrically, they've always been poor. And then, you know, that band didn't play on all the albums. They had other people. And that's what kept Kiss out of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for so long. Well, I just got around to saying Kiss. Kiss would have to be considered at least a top 10, you know, American band.
But yeah, Creedence is definitely on the list.
Here is, let's just run through some of these quickly. David, what do you got?
Hey, Ron, this notion that Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers ain't a band is crazy. Without Tom Petty, they're a great band.
Look, you're preaching to the choir, but he did go off and do things separately. And I think it kind of is weird when you put "and" with the band. There would be a big difference between a band called the Heartbreakers and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers means he gets a different bus that he's traveling. And it's a vote of one. You know, if it was Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, we would look at the Rolling Stones differently. It's just the way the world is.
Entirely.
Buddy Holly and the Crickets.
They easily could have been the Crickets.
They would have been. If they would have been the Crickets, we would actually probably have more respect for what happened there than if it was Buddy Holly and the Crickets. Because now we just look at it as one genius. Frank in New York.
What's up, Bennington? How you doing, buddy?
Good, bud.
Oh, man, what about the Allman Brothers? How the fuck are we forgetting them?
Dude, you are 100% right. To look at American music and not have the Allman Brothers in the early part of this, insane. Steve, Alabama.
Hey, I don't know if they're the best, but they're definitely worth considering as the talking heads.
You are right. They have to be considered. Tom Harrisburg.
Yeah, I was going to say the Monkees, but I'm going to change that to the Funk Brothers, the guys who did all the Motown songs.
Well, see, I don't think that you could use the Funk Brothers or the Wrecking Crew because they weren't an actual band. They were studio musicians. We can't use the Monkees because, A, the lead singer was English, and B, the rest of the group, the whole thing was just like a cartoon.
Yeah. Too pop heavy.
William.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to include Van Halen, and simply because this sound was so American, you got to put Bon Jovi on the list somewhere.
Well, I mean, surely anybody is worth discussing. Van Halen, you wonder if they didn't screw it up by having the Van Hagar era, blah, blah, blah. You know, that thing becomes much more confusing than looking at Aerosmith or the band that everybody is totally excited reuniting thanks to Andrew Dice Clay, Guns N' Roses.
Thank God.
Let me just bring this up. You know where you are? You're in the jungle, baby.
And is that not working for you guys?
Do you even understand that? Corey, Memphis.
Hey, guys and gals. It would be interesting to see if the White Stripes would have lasted longer, where they would have ended up on this list. But I think you're greatly underestimating Foo Fighters' global reach.
Well, first of all, I don't underestimate them.
He doesn't. He really doesn't.
And you really have to look at Dave Grohl is probably in 2 of the top 10 greatest American bands of all time, no matter where we put it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's insane.
Here's Sheldon in Canada. Sheldon.
Hey, guys, I'm thinking Metallica. What about them?
It's a gigantic band. It's a standalone band. It's very American in the fact that it's big, it's loud, it's aggressive like us. They all got their haircuts together like us.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Everyone on the...
We used to be a long-haired show. We're suddenly a short-haired show.
Maybe I should go short hair.
Pixie cut?
Yeah, go with a pixie. Really match the whole show.
Here's somebody I can always count on because this guy, he knows famous pants. That's my good friend Hard Rock Johnny.
Someone stole my Metallica right before me, but I have a couple other thoughts.
You mean Selloutica?
Yes. What about REM?
REM,
like
gigantic band.
Head is that?
Gigantic band.
And
Self-made sound.
Another one that's very American, the Grateful Dead.
Grateful Dead. If you look at Grateful Dead and you look at REM, one started kind of college rock, which became alternative. The other one, you can make the case that the Grateful Dead started jam band.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Let's ask our intern who calls himself jam band.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that the Grateful Dead the first jam band?
Yes.
What is the greatest American band?
Grateful Dead.
There's no...
I think in terms of commercial success, absolutely not. But
Right.
in terms of their following and the amount of other bands that they have inspired, they are number one.
Yeah. If it was as easy as saying what American band sold the most records, we wouldn't have to do this.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have to discuss it. It is what is the greatest American band. All right, Joey, you say that they went by parts of the country?
Yes, the CNN poll went by different regions of the country.
What are the regions that they picked?
They chose the Northeast, California, New York, the South, and the Midwest.
This is very weird.
Interesting.
All right, the South. Let's see if we can just guess who everybody picked. For the South, I'm going to say the South picked Leonard Skinner.
Creedence, maybe.
Creedence, which is a West Coast band. What do you think they picked?
It has to be Skinner. There's no other way they picked that.
All right, Joey, who did they pick?
They chose Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Wow!
Yeah.
I am so happy with the South. And good. For all the people who never put Tom Petty and Heartbreakers in Southern fucking rock, and that's a band out of Florida. It's always driven me crazy. I'm very excited by that pick.
Wow.
You know what? I don't even think I want to know the rest of the countries. All right.
You know, the shame sometimes you feel with being associated with the South, it's melted away.
Well, you were from the South. I'm not.
Oh, right. I meant my shame.
Yeah.
My own personal shame.
I'm from a state that has won 6 different Super Bowls. Pennsylvania.
That's great, man.
It's 2 largest cities. And let me tell you something. I mean, I say 2 largest because Harrisburg, fuck them. I mean, they haven't done shit for it. But between Philly and Pittsburgh, we've won 6 Super Bowls. That's amazing. All right, I'm going to say, next you say New York, right?
New
York.
York.
Region.
Yeah.
Which really annoys me.
Yeah.
They picked Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Gail, what do you think?
I think they said the Ramones.
Talking Heads.
You got to remember, guys, New York is a lot more than just New York City. All right, Vito wants to get involved in this. Go ahead, Vito.
Kiss.
There's a possibility that Kiss scored high in New York. I mean, they are a Long Island band. Joey, it's up to you.
One of you is exactly right. It's Gail. It's the Ramones.
Yeah!
Wow! The Ramones.
Yeah! I am shocked.
You know, this is the first time that I've been like 0 for 2, but like happier with America than with me. Because I'm picking the win. They're picking from their heart. Gail picked from her heart. We laughed in her face.
You all laughed at me.
Yeah. And we're like, what a dumb girl doing girl stuff. All right. What's the next part? New England?
Northwest. Pacific Northwest.
Well, they picked, I'm going to say they picked Pearl Jam over Nirvana. You're going
Nirvana.
Gail?
Okay, so this is North. Yeah, it's got to be Nirvana, but if it's not, I don't know, GNR?
In the Northwest? I don't see that happening. All right. One of us is right?
One of you is right.
Please.
The winner is Nirvana.
Oh, yeah!
Nirvana.
Got you, Pacific Northwest.
Nirvana.
We didn't wake up with a war today. All right, give us the next region.
All right, this is probably my favorite one of all of them. It's the Midwest.
The Midwest.
The Midwest is young and restless.
Kansas?
Kansas. We're not saying Kansas.
What do they get down with?
Well, I'll tell you. And we're talking rock and roll. We're talking about a rock band.
Talking about rock and roll.
Yeah. I mean, the Midwest was always a big place for like Cheap Trick and REO Speedwagon. You know what I mean? Just real meat and potatoes. Boo, 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 boo. But I think and is it a classic rock or a newer rock?
It's classic.
Okay.
Oh, shit.
I'm going to say REO Speedwagon.
I'm going to say Bob Seger and his Silver Bullet Band.
I'm going to say Kiss as a fucking shocker.
That's a good one.
All right, this band.
Did any of us pick right?
No.
Wait.
Do you guys want to go
Keep going.
How about I give you guys a hint? I'll give you guys state.
Just give us the band.
The band is, you mentioned it before, Cheap Trick out of Rockford, Illinois.
Oh my God! Another shock.
Does America have good taste?
They have better taste than this show.
Or at least that we give them credit for.
Yeah, we do, because we think of them as fucking idiots.
I mean, I would have said Cheap Trick.
Yeah, I've been treating them the same way that the Hard Rock Cafe treats. Come on in, Rubes. I got another keychain for you.
Hey.
But in a nice way.
Yeah,
Johnny,
in like a good way. You know how you do.
All right, well, give us another place.
All right, the last region that they chose, West Coast, California.
Oh, boy.
I'm gonna say.
Snoop. Gotta be Snoop.
The Beach Boys.
You're gonna pick the Beach Boys, Chris?
The Doors?
I'm going to say the recently passed Glenn Fry's band, the Eagles.
All right, one of you is exactly right.
God, please.
Again, it's Gail.
Oh!
The Beach Boys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember when Gail and her brother were little, we flew out to California. As I rented the car and we're pulling on just that big LAX sign that's in different fucking colors, you know, the kids are all happy, like, oh, we're in California. I turn on the radio and it's the Beach Boys, California Girls, and I'm just like, what? It's like a bad movie. We're just like pulling out of the airport, and the kids they got their faces up in the window, and you hear, bum, bum, and you're just like, what?
This is crazy.
Yeah.
It's real.
We're staying, motherfuckers.
It's so warm here.
Yeah. It's so warm and it's fun. All right, that I doubt. Here's what happens. I think people try to give the right answers, but they don't necessarily buy that way. But the out of all of it, the Midwest, sticking with Cheap Trick. Now, how old were the people that were doing this? Because it seems like middle-aged and up.
Middle-aged and up, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even that still surprises me. That the Ramones,
Yeah.
Cheap Trick, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. That was surprising too.
In a good way. See, Tom Petty to me seems like one of those guys who's just spread out exactly the same, no matter where in the country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's certain bands that have pockets. Like I talked about the Midwest bands that would do much better in the Midwest than they would do on the coast. But I just think that Petty is beloved no matter where he goes.
Mm.
I wonder if he even knows how beloved he is.
He probably doesn't.
I'll tell him.
Make sure you do.
Oh, thanks, man. You like this crazy hat I put on?
I do. I do, Tom Petty.
Come on in. I just wrote a new song about herb.
Sounds cool.
Well, Johnny, you were wrong about everything.
Turns out you know nothing, Johnny.
Johnny, what do we got to do to save that metal show? Where do we got to go with this?
That's tough. Poor Eddie. I felt really bad yesterday.
Me too.
I think they get picked up by like you said Palladia yesterday, but there's not Access TV. There's another one that shows a lot of live music and has concerts. It's Mark Cuban's network.
Oh yeah. I don't get it though on my thing.
No, that's like a DirecTV channel.
No, I have it on Fios.
Oh, great.
Cool.
Well, we're stuck with Time Warner.
In my whole building is never going to get off to Time Warner.
It's
Yeah,
horrible.
the whole neighborhood. I don't know why that's allowed.
Because it's very hard to hook up these buildings. But with the thing that I'm working on right now is a wireless way of communication.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, it'll be done through antenna. And you have an antenna that picks up a signal.
Where do the wires go?
No, it's wireless.
So no plugging in?
That's weird.
Well, they turn it on, obviously.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But no coaxial. All right, Johnny. But you get to the bottom of it, I'll get to the bottom of my stuff.
Please. I'm thinking maybe they go on the Shark Show. Eddie and Don and Jim on the Sharks.
I know who's going to fucking pick them, too. Fubu.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely Fubu.
Daryl Fubu.
By the way, do you notice that Fubu is no longer for us or by us? He just...
Whoever wants it.
Whoever will give me money to take these initials, and he doesn't even feel slightly bad about it.
I have a Fubu toothbrush. It's ridiculous.
Do you really?
No.
Why say it,
I
Chris?
really believed it for a second.
On what I consider Martin Luther King week.
The whole week.
All right. Peace, Johnny.
Peace, Johnny.
Nathan, Canada. Nathan.
I picked the band.
Well, the
Do
band...
we share the band with Canada?
Yeah, because here's the thing. Most people don't know that it's 80% a Canadian band.
Yeah.
80%. But Levon is so Southern that everyone assumes that it's a Southern band.
Yeah. I thought that it was 20%,
a Southern... Just 20%, could we put it in American too, just for that 20?
Well, here's the problem. It's 20% American, but a 100% Southern kind of sound. It's the most interesting band that's ever happened. I'm going to give it to Canada as Canada's greatest band. And I would agree. I want you to hold it proudly.
I would agree.
All right, thank you, my friend.
Maybe that's a different list of internationally mixed bands.
Oh,
that's good.
Fuck you, CNN. And I'm going to put the band who did Pass the Dutchie on that list. Paulie in New York.
Hey, buddies, what's up? Scope Bro 226, checking in.
Oh, Scope Bro.
Scope.
Hey, Ronnie, how about somebody from your backyard, right in your land of Philly, Hall and Oates?
Well, they are the biggest selling duo of all time. So fuck you, Simon and Garfunkel. I don't know who else is considered a duo. Sonny and Cher.
Yeah.
And then
Captain and Tennille.
I kind of feel like Captain was running the whole deal with very limited skills. And I never saw that fucker on a boat. Granted, he had the hat, but I saw Chris walking around with a Viking helmet.
It doesn't mean nothing.
It means everything. I'm
Is
a
that
Viking
all?
now.
Is that all it takes to be a cappy?
Jay in Long Island.
Yeah, how about Steely Dan?
Daddy don't live in that New York City no more. Steely Dan takes the same kind of heat of using a lot of session players that a lot of people are like, they're not truly a band. I believe that they are, you know, but they may only be a duo. It's worth discussing, but I've never seen them do anything that I didn't love. Janice, my friend in Chicago. Let me guess, the band Chicago?
Is that it, Janice?
No, personally, I love Grand Funk Railroad.
Whoa.
I love Mark Farner. He has such a set of pipes.
I like that answer.
Getting closer to my home.
And Mean Mistreater, and I even got his...
That was a gigantic band who made our Detroit.
They did, yeah.
Great to talk to you, Janice. I'm surprised that you didn't pick a Chicago band, but, you know, you picked that Michigan band, Grand Funk Railroad, which, oh, God, you guys went right to the head, huh? This is one unfucking hip show. Why didn't you do their cover of Locomotion, you fucking pussies?
Yeah, he posted out for some reason.
Although, there is no one who will not sing along with the dumb lyrics to I'm an American Band.
Oh, yeah.
These fine ladies, they had a plan.
It's very singable.
It is incredibly singable.
I'm just surprised that Janice didn't say Wilco. Seems like a Wilco girl.
Oh, God. I like Wilco myself, not as much as Eastside Dave does. Eastside Dave would get a little annoying about Wilco. Don't you hate it when someone likes a band so much that you're forced to hate that band?
Yeah, and I think the Wilco fans are like that. Wilco fans have really dedicated fans.
Well, I'm going to do an impression. I'll be a hardcore Wilco fan, and you just say that you like Wilco.
I like Wilco.
Oh, do you? How many songs can you name? Who are the people in the band? You're just like,
I like a couple.
You know why I changed my mind? I don't like Wilco. And I really hate Wilco fans.
How many times have you seen them live? Oh, like kind of once, but
I was drunk.
I don't remember it.
Fish is the same way. How many times do you think you have to see Fish before people will leave you alone at a Fish show?
Oh, to get respect at a Fish show, you gotta have 100 shows underneath the belt.
What?
They're such assholes.
That's the time.
They're such jerks. And I've eaten so much shit at shows talking to these fucking assholes.
If I've seen any act more than, let's say, a half dozen times, I start to feel embarrassed about it. I'm like, if someone says, how many times did you say? I'm like, oh, 8, I guess. And I feel bad about myself, like I'm a doofus. And they're like, that's not nearly enough.
Maybe it's even better just to say once. Like you had one great time. Can't wait for more. But like 2 or 3, it's like, why so few?
Well, this is funny. So, because we have all these fucking Bruce Springsteen heads around here who have seen Springsteen so many times. And they'll be like, I saw him 78 times. And I'm not even fucking kidding. It's like most of the people. And I go like this, I'll go like, well, I saw him at Widener College in 75, so it fucking beats the fact that you've been to the last 8. Because that was literally when they were breaking.
Yeah.
It was like right before Born to Run came out.
Was it crazy?
It was great,
Right.
but we thought that they were a Philly band to us. They were almost, there were certain bands that felt like Philly bands, and they were one of them.
But the South Jersey Philly thing is it's pretty narrow difference.
It is, but they don't. Asbury Park is not completely South Jersey.
Oh, okay.
It's right on. I mean, it's like 90 miles to Philly, but it's more a New York beach town.
Yeah. I guess I just thought that it was South Philly, but you're right. It is kind of, that's South Jersey.
No, Eastside Dave lives lower than Asbury Park, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, south of it.
Where's he fucking live? Barnegat Light?
Not sure. Neptune, maybe?
He was nuts yesterday. He just came in and acted like a crazy man for the last 15 minutes of the show. He's like, why aren't you staying for my show? Because that's not how I do shows. I want to be invited properly.
Just stick around.
Hey, that you're here, stay. I don't have anything planned. Dude, the guy that is his producer, was he the producer before the guy that used to be on 57th Street with us?
Yeah, he was an intern for Opie and Anthony, Cream Pie Jones.
Dude, I haven't seen that guy in like 8 fucking years. He still walks the same way.
Oh, really?
He's got that weird little walk. Hey, Mark in Canada. Mark.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
Just diving into the music there. There's a band up here in Canada. I don't know how big they are down in the States there, but the Tragic Hip.
Tragically Hip is, yeah. They actually do very well along the border because of Canadian radio. And they're a great, great band.
Yeah, I never hear their name mentioned when people talk about great bands and whatnot, but everybody up here knows every one of their songs, can sing along.
Well, how does Canadian radio work? How much of radio needs to be a Canadian artist?
I think it's mostly done by how many fucking commercials they can pump in, because I quit listening years ago when satellite radio came out.
Right.
I couldn't tell you.
But it's one of the reasons that, bands like Tragically Hip could get big in Canada, because they play a certain percentage of the music has to be Canadian.
I think that's so cool.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's fucking brilliant. I wish that every area of the United States was under the same kind of thing. I think that if people in the Northeast had to play Northeastern music, if people in the South had to play, even if it was 15 or 20%, and so much of it had to be a new band, it'd be so much better.
What if we also applied it to TV? Like a certain percentage just had to be local TV.
Well, a lot of guys get started in Canadian TV because, it's open to you. You can just go up there and start doing a show if you're Canadian.
Right.
And then as soon as they, get it up, they'll transfer it to the United States. But what are you doing, Chris?
Anything to plug?
What am I plugging?
Mr. Chris Gethard is coming up soon.
Okay. Where were we? Canadian TV?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? Is Chris here?
He just signed in.
Okay. Why don't we take a break? Chris Gethard is going to be here in a little bit. We also have a guy wants to argue for some. This is a strange one. But here's Brandon in Arizona. He wants to make a point. You're from Brandon. What band is the number one American band?
Well, a lot of people want to say it might not be a band because it's got one name, but John Cougar Mellencamp.
Now, those same players have been with him forever?
Well, yeah. I mean, he might lose a bassist once in a while, but I mean, he's pretty much had his same core background for 20, 30 years.
See, the weird thing is, I don't know if that makes you a band. I think if you don't have a vote at least, even if it's not the same vote as the lead singer and lead guitar player. You know what I mean? But you have to be considered a band before, if you're replaced, it has to seem like a big thing to the people out there. And again, that's why you really don't know whether you can consider Steely Dan a band, because there's only two people that people would make a big deal about.
Right. But that comes up all the time where people will argue, oh, like people don't give credit to, like we said, the Attractions or a band that is really great. But if they aren't kind of circled in, we don't think of them as a.
I mean, if you're sitting around and playing this game, Aerosmith has the same lineup that they did in like 1972, whenever they broke. Never, there were a couple different things where the band was fighting, so somebody was out. But the reality of it is, it's really the same lineup as when they were kids. That's pretty stunning.
That's crazy. I mean, first of all, it's just weird to think that anyone could work together that long, especially creatively.
Well, but does that even is that more important than the Doors and their 4 years that were just unbelievable? Florentine brought this up about who would and wouldn't make the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I forget who we brought up.
I can't remember.
Somebody from the early 90s.
That they were just together for a short.
He goes, no, they were together too short. You have to be out. You have to be together for a while for me to support you.
Right.
Not one of us can remember who it was.
Remember.
Soundgarden keeps popping into my head, but they were together probably.
Yeah, they were together a long time. Again, he says things jump into her mind or pop into his head. I wonder where he thinks his thoughts come from first. Very interesting, because he doesn't think that he owns his thoughts. That's why he's ready to yell out crazy shit.
They're
that nobody
own
ever
those
would bring up. I'm going to be crazy until I fucking think of this.
It was a metal band. It was a rock band. Do you remember which?
I think it was a rock band.
A 90s rock band.
Was it NWA?
No, come on. Did you think that fucking he would ever
support
would sit around and bring up NWA? It was Rage Against the Machine. That's who it was.
Oh, okay.
No, because they really only had 2 albums, but those albums are so important, and that sound was so important that I put them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And there's plenty of bands like that that were together a short time, but it burned very bright.
Right, but 2 albums. I don't know if we got anybody like that. Maybe you could go to Blind Faith, which was not a real. I mean, it was a real band, but the guys were famous before, famous after. Not the same as if you're looking at Rage,
Yeah.
where they were all kids together, blew up. All right, we got a break. We'll come back with Chris Gethard. This is the Bennington Show.
This is Bennington on Raw Dog 99, Sirius XM's Comedy Club.
Well, the Pixies always do fun stuff for us. And Frank and Kim.
Yeah.
Even though they're not getting along now, they want to come by and do something nice for you.
Yeah, it's not sweet.
No, wait, what happened? I'm so overwhelmed. So shell-shocked right now.
That didn't sound like Frank and Kim to you?
I mean,
yeah.
it sounded close enough that I'll buy it if you insist on it.
The point of the matter is you are beloved.
How do I get a copy of that song?
It's given to you.
Oh my God.
It's good. You can leave with it, but
you gave me no warning.
No, there's never going to be any warning.
Wow. Thank you to whoever did that.
Well, that was Joe over there, and then Gail played the part of Kim.
Yes.
Kim Deal.
My lifelong dream.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Although, are you more Breeders than Pixies?
I'm not, but I love the Breeders.
You do love
I
the Breeders.
absolutely love the Breeders.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite Pixie song, too.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And is that usually how you sing it, with your name?
Just scream it out. Yeah, and my own name, yes. Most songs I put my own name in.
Sure.
Yes.
So this is great. Speaking of your own name, the show is picked up. You get another season of
Season 2, 10 more episodes.
Strangeness.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're going to an hour long this time as well.
Wow.
Yeah, back to an hour. Well, 44 minutes because commercials, but that half hour was tight.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of the comments online were like, this is funny, but man, it's feeling real tight compared to public access. And I couldn't say it, but I was like, I get that.
Now, how long did the public access show last?
We were on public access for 4 years.
But how long were these
episodes? They were 58 minutes each.
Really?
Yeah. So we were used to 4 years every week, 58 minutes.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we went to 22 minutes and we were like, oh, we got this. And then it was tough. It was hard.
Yeah, because it's not a formatted show.
No.
So some nights the 58 minutes felt like it was 3 hours because there would be this weird thing.
Horrible episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing that's great about you. You will you'll risk failure.
Oh yeah.
That's not known for TV.
No, they don't. I tell you, it's weird. Like the network that we're on, they're cool about it. And they're like, we get it. But it's also like a lot for them to wrap their brain around of like, wait, we're going to give you a whole budget and like you are going to do this thing that's almost definitely going to fall on its face. And I'm like, yeah. That's the whole point. Yeah. That's what people dig about it. So it's tough. But I feel like in season 1, there was only one true disaster. We did an episode where the whole audience was dogs.
Yeah.
And that one was really, the editor the fact that the editor made a half-hour show out of that is a miracle that speaks to he should win an Emmy for that.
Because the idea is, this is so crazy.
Yeah.
But the fact that it doesn't work because it's so crazy. You can't get dogs to.
Well, that one, I mean, they were just like free roaming. It was just like 31 puppies just going around the studio while I'm trying to interview Jason Sudeikis. And it's just like, this is at one point totally unscripted. He said, I was like, it smells really bad in here. And he's like, I actually have no sense of smell. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, like I have no sense of smell. It's a weird trivia fact about me. And he was like, I could eat a chimichanga like above a pile of dog crap right now that these dogs are putting out. And I was like, all right, someone go get a chimichanga. And by the end of the taping, we had one and he was like hunched over a pile of dog feces eating a chimichanga. And I was just like, this was not like an idea that was pitched. Like no index card ever got put up on a wall of have a man with no sense of smell.
Because if you have no sense of smell, I thought that you have no sense of taste.
Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine it's diminished. Either way, he was just deeply inhaling over a garbage bag full of dog poop while he ate.
I would imagine it could be a pretty spicy chimichanga at that. Like, it's got to be diluted.
You should have wiped some dog shit on that chimichanga. So not only you're eating above it, you're eating it. Congratulations. Wow. This is TV.
Well, season 2. Yeah. Season 2, we'll take that next step.
Chris Gethard.
That was incredible. That was incredible. Yeah. That blew my mind, man.
You were just, you kind of wonder if you went into a different reality.
I did. And you were all, it's also like that song kicked in and I was like nodding my head along and then you were all looking at me and I knew it was like how I look at someone when I know they're about to like trip and fall. You know?
I didn't realize that we were doing that, but I was staring right at you like, wait till he hears.
Yeah. You like this song, do you?
Well, this is the thing that you don't know, that we're trying to fight to make you our best friend over somebody that you are actually probably better friends with. And who are we talking about, Gail, when you did a show?
Tom Sharpling.
Oh, yeah. I just did his show last night.
That makes us so mad because
not a fan.
Love. But
yeah,
when I did the best show, you came up, and somehow it got to be a contest. And I was like, Chris, I know Chris Gethard. He's come in a number of times. And he's like, oh, yeah, well, we just went to a basketball game together.
So that hurt us. So you may have to either go on a picnic or
something.
Anything. Any activity you want to do.
Yeah.
I am more than down for it.
And then I can text Tom Sharpling and be like, guess what I did?
We'll send a picture from the Brooklyn Carousel that we're all just riding back and forth.
I would love that.
By the way, you know who did the music for the Brooklyn is Teddy Zambetti down the hall. The guy who was like our in-house musician. Did the music for the Brooklyn Carousel.
That is so cool.
I know, it's amazing.
What a cool thing like a New York thing to say you're a part of.
I know, it's crazy. That could last forever for all we know.
And we'll be enjoying it so soon.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I've been on that carousel once with my wife, and you'll be the second person I go on that carousel with.
I can't wait.
I'm into it. Yeah,
Did your
I'm
wife
into
go
it.
to the Knicks game with you guys, or
There's just me and Sharpling.
Damn it!
It's just me and Sharpling.
Damn it!
Yeah.
Well, you know, he's offer. I mean, Chris does a lot of Periscopes, and I've seen you do. You actually announced your second season of Periscope, right?
Yeah, took it right to the people.
Yeah, I was watching that. It was really great. But Chris does these weird Periscopes, but Sharpling thinks that they're terrible.
Yeah.
And has offered to come in and be a guest director with a iPhone.
That'd be great.
field.
I think that would be great.
Yeah, that's the olive branch.
I think he could really focus you.
You think?
Yeah.
You know what we need to do is get us all together
Yeah.
one day, you know? And then have you, like, we'll stand on different sides of the room, and then you see whether you run to Sharpling or us.
Oh,
that would be really
I would love
fun.
that.
Yeah.
Come on,
Which one?
Chris.
Yeah.
Come on.
I would be. I'm into that.
Who has that?
I'm way into that.
What do you got lined up for this year? What do you have planned, or do you have anything planned yet
For
your show?
We don't have anything planned yet.
Yeah.
I have some ideas. I do know, like, last year, our season finale, we took everybody on buses and took them all around New Jersey. And they had to, like, push the buses at certain points and fight the Jersey Devil. So I'm like, I gotta go bigger than that.
Right.
And I'm really into this idea of, like, everybody says our show is, like, not just, like, a cult audience, but, like, a borderline actual religious cult.
Yeah.
And I want to see how far I can push that. I have some ideas where people might have to come, like, live in a compound with me.
I like that.
Yeah.
You know, this year, I think his Lifetime is doing something on the Manson girls. Finally. You know, something for the ladies.
Uh-huh.
And this is ripe for parody without even seeing it. We don't even need to see it.
I would love it.
Yeah.
I would love to start a compound where my fans come and live with me and where I give sermons every morning. I would love that.
You know what's great about this? You wouldn't need that many before you would be able to be, as long as they're going out and getting money on the street and stuff like that.
Manipulating politicians and doing mind-altering drugs.
Right.
Inappropriate sexual content that creates, like, conduct that creates a feeling of shame so that no one can share it and we have to keep secrets as a community.
Oh, God,
I know how to start a cult.
I think you could do it with 25, 30 people. And it's
I was thinking
decent,
just like a baker's dozen would be fine.
Really? You'd have that many?
I'd go so far as to say that you could start with 6.
6?
You could start a cult with 6 and grow it from there. Yeah, I've thought a lot about
Just
this.
seems like a weird group of friends, though. 6.
Well, and but they're the inner circle, right?
Right.
Yeah, I want every fan of the Gethard show to shave their head and wear a powder blue jumpsuit by the end of the season.
I love that, dude.
Yeah.
You've got the people for it, too.
Wait, you have a good point there. Inner circle, like, I think a cult needs tiers because you
absolutely.
need a lower tier
Absolutely.
because they have to want to graduate
and
upward
they need to
towards
try to
you.
get closer to me, their
Yeah.
godlike being on earth.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I read one of the L. Ron Hubbard books, the books about him, and he eventually ended up just on this ship, this almost like barge that was out at sea, and he would only talk through these young teenage girls who came to his room to get messages, right? But they would go out and tell the others what they wanted done, but they would do it in an L. Ron Hubbard impression. So these little 13, 14-year-old girls were like, make sure you take care of all the things that, and they would do this weird
I
squawk.
love that.
Yeah. And I'm like, fuck, I want a cult so bad.
By the end of the season, if I have it where people are speaking for me while I sit in silence on the TV, that could be great.
Yeah. They have to do an impression. They're wearing your glasses.
Yeah.
That's the whole
everybody
thing.
wear my
Yeah.
glasses. Yes.
Now, has there ever been a musician that you could see yourself following to that weird extreme? Like, and I brought this up when Bowie died, the first time I saw Bowie, the first 3, 4, there
Do you know
it
about
is.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I already have.
You are ready to go. Oh,
I have a Morrissey tattoo on my shoulder. I have his lyrics on my arm, and I'm currently wearing a Smith shirt.
See, that's the perfect type because it's never so big that he's worried about hits. I mean, you talk about a cult.
Yeah.
He doesn't need hits. As a matter of fact, it would probably hurt if something successful came out in his life. It would hurt him with his core audience.
And I think people who like the Smith, like when you find somebody who
Yes.
really likes Morrissey, then you're like, oh, a kindred spirit.
And a lot of
as
people-
opposed to like everyone likes this
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
And a lot of people hate him. A lot of people hate on him, so it makes you kind of feel defensive and protective.
Even more.
Yeah.
Even more so.
Yeah.
Than you would ever be because they're like, what is it? I always like any musician that the non-fans think that they're trying to be fooled by that band. You know what I mean? Like they're all, like people who aren't fans are like, they're just doing that for their own.
Right.
You're like, what? You don't see it as an art form? You think it's just set up to mock you because you don't get it? What was it about the Smiths that worked for you as a kid?
Well, I started listening to them probably when I was around like 14 or so. And I mean, you know, it's kind of like the stereotypical thing to say about a fan of the Smiths or Morrissey, but I was like really depressed. I was a very depressed kid and really struggled with that for a long time. And I still do from time to time, but as it got worse, I just really felt like those lyrics were just kind of honest. Like they sort of expressed some things that were maybe some of the frustrations I was feeling.
Right.
It was the only place I was really hearing them expressed, which is like a cool thing about music, I think.
Well, it is cool about music. And remember when Rufus Wainwright came in here not too long ago, he said, it's the lyrics that make something great.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard anyone, let alone a fantastic musician the way he is, that could sit down and play anything on piano or guitar for that matter, and Tim to say, if you don't have important lyrics, you don't have important music.
Yeah.
And it's haunted me. Like, I'll think of it at weird times of the day, like, well, there's a silly song that's important. You know what I mean? I'll be like, driving down the road, like, a Wild Thing is an important song. And these are silly lyrics. But overall, I think that he's right, you know?
Yeah, and the Smiths is definitely like one of those groups where I think that was my into it was definitely from the lyrics when I was young, and I felt like, you know, it like kind of made you embrace what's kind of weird about you or what's dark about you, and yeah.
I've actually recently accidentally become the singer of a Smiths cover band.
How accidentally?
Yeah, I slid backwards into it.
Yeah.
It was really, there's a punk festival in Gainesville every Halloween weekend called Fest. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all these bands that I like, and a lot of them have played my show. And I go down there and I do comedy, and they asked me if I had any other ideas this year. So I said, well, what if they do these cover sets because it's Halloween, so they let bands play total cover sets of other bands. I was like, what if I do a Smiths one? And people loved it, and now we're getting booked for more shows. We're doing a show in Brooklyn in a few weeks, and a record label's offered to put out a 7-inch of a bunch of our songs. It's like now I'm just the lead singer in a Smiths cover band.
But they're not your songs, though. Let's be totally honest.
We're going to put out a record of other people's songs. But I think there's a real market here.
Yeah.
I think I might be able to pick up some supplemental income being a Smiths cover frontman.
Well, first of all, you don't normally go to a cover band and see a celebrated artist in his own right as the guy in the cover band. But where are you doing this show in Brooklyn?
It's at a place called Suburbia. Or no, wait, is it at no, it's at Palisades.
Okay.
One of those two. It's one of those punk venues. I forget which. I always mix those two up. But yeah, it's the first weekend in February. I'm opening. My friends are in a band called Chumped, and they're playing their last show. And for some reason, they asked me to pretend to be Morrissey and open up their show.
Now, what is that?
6th, I think, on February 6th.
What is that like for you? Because you've acted and you're a stand-up, but going on stage with rock music, is a different experience.
I really felt quite nervous about it.
Yeah.
I felt like, because it's also like they're not my lyrics. It's like, and I get really mad. Like, if you ever hear a cover where someone messes up the lyrics, it's like, well, then why did you do the cover?
Yeah.
And I've heard Smiths covers where people mess up the lyrics. And I'm always like, well, why did you do it? But then I had to go do it. And it's like, oh, right, but there's adrenaline and people looking at me. And I dyed my hair black like Morrissey. I really went for it. And I was very nervous, very nervous. And then I also quickly realized, we had rehearsed a couple times, but I realized with the actual performance adrenaline, like, I cannot sing as high-pitched as Morrissey. So it was sort of like if like an early 80s hardcore band covered the Smiths. It was just me, like, screaming into the microphone. It was just me screaming.
Yeah.
I felt like I was going to die by the end. I honestly thought I was going to have like an aneurysm on stage.
I had done stuff on stage years ago with like bands where they said, oh, stay up and do stuff like just hit a cowbell or a tambourine or something. And it would be these huge venues. And I felt like I slept like a baby that night. I was just like, what? That is such a different experience. You're just pumped up immediately.
I will say, as a comedian, doing comedy before bands, I think is the hardest type of show I get booked to do.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost impossible. No one is in the mood to hear somebody tell jokes and anecdotes when they're there for music.
And even when you got them, you only have them for a couple minutes. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, this is fun and this is a show. And then you just see them realizing that they want something else.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like two very different moods that somebody would be in.
I think the 2 times I got heckled the worst in my life were at music shows.
Who were the acts?
One was, it was a benefit for WFMU radio, which you'd think all their fans are like super polite, like socially backwards record collecting nerds. They did a benefit and they asked me to do comedy, and I went on right before it was John Spencer Blues Explosion. And this guy was standing right in the front. Nobody was listening. People were like yelling stuff, and one guy right in the front stood in the front row and he was like, "Play fucking music! Play some fucking music!" And I'd be like, "Why are you?" And he wouldn't even let me like engage him. He'd be like, "No, don't talk at me. You play some fucking music." And I was like, "There's no way to handle this maniac." And then the other one was, I got booked. I felt really bad about this one. I got booked to open for the Bouncing Souls at the Music Hall of Williamsburg, which is a giant venue. And that's like a Jersey punk band that I grew up with. Yeah. And all their fans were just like people who came from Jersey. And I was like, man, these are like my people. I grew up going to shows with bands like this. I used to go see them. And I went out and man, they were not in the mood. And I crumbled. That's the last time I can think of as a comedian where I just like quit on stage, where they actually broke me. They broke me bad. It was bad. And I was like hosting the whole night, so I did my set and it went so poorly that I'd have to go out and host and people would just boo every time I came
like,
back.
"Oh, fuck this guy."
Yeah, it
This
was
guy
bad.
again.
It was really bad. I'd just like make Jersey references and there'd be like a smattering of applause. If I was like, "I used to eat hot dogs at Rutt's Hut," they'd like cheer for a second, and then I'd try to tell a joke and they'd be like, "Get off the fucking stage." It was so bad. So bad.
Chris Gethard's in studio. Chris is performing at the Arlington Draft House this Friday, January 22nd, and Saturday, January 23rd in Arlington, Virginia. Go to arlingtondrafthouse.com for tickets. And hour-long episodes of The Chris Gethard Show returns for a second season this spring on Fusion. And Chris Gethard Smith's cover band is performing February 6th at Suburbia.
It's Suburbia?
It's
Thanks,
Suburbia.
I would have gone to the wrong place.
And the name of the cover band is what?
Right now, it's just the Smiths cover band, but I think I want to name it after a Smiths song.
Sure.
But there's a bunch, like the Sons and Heirs is already an existing Smiths cover band. The Sweet and Tender Hooligans is already an existing Smiths cover band. So I think I want to go with Some Girls' Mothers. That's a Smiths lyric. We'll be called Some Girls' Mothers.
I like that.
I think so. I think what does it say about me if we stop booking it as like Chris Gethard and Friends and this novelty Smiths act and we actually have a real name? Then it's a real thing. I'm committing to.
It will be a real thing. And it would be one thing if, like, you played bass with it because you enjoy music, but you being up front like that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the statement there is just gigantic.
And I dyed my hair. I dyed my eyebrows. I put makeup in my eyebrows. I made myself look like Morrissey. I wore like a puffy shirt. I did his whole thing. People in the crowd were like reaching their hands out, like doing all the things that happen at Morrissey concerts.
Now, were you doing a Morrissey impression? Were you trying to
in
sound?
between songs, I was trying to make some jokes in a Morrissey-esque voice, and that went better than the singing. The jokes went better than the singing. Yeah. Yeah, but people were into it.
That's something you wouldn't be able to pull off if you just went up there as yourself. And
It's true. It's totally true. I have failed trying to do my actual profession and succeeded slipping it in under the guise of a cover band.
Maybe that's the only way to combine music and comedy is just to have the front man do the comedy.
No, I kind of feel like New Jersey is ground zero of tribute bands, where it's not just a covered band, but we look and sound and they don't, like, if you look at some like the Jersey Shore, you could just see 50 years of rock and roll being played out at different bars in the summer, because there's going to be a Journey band, there's going to be a Metallica, then there's bands that you didn't know anybody would, do tributes to.
Well, that was like a cultural thing too, right? That it was known for that there, and people would go out. I don't know. Do people still do that there?
Springsteen came from there, and it didn't occur to him to pretend he was Elvis. You know, it's a very strange thing to not just cover songs, but to act like we are this band.
But the real interesting thing, I once read an essay about some of these cover bands where they like live the rock star lifestyle too.
Sure,
they don't just like take off those outfits and walk away. They like live like Van Halen.
Right. They
try to like outdrink everybody and hook up with girls all the time. Like they really try to emulate their entire lives.
Well, that whole thing of the rock and roll lifestyle kind of got forgotten. But then I was watching Sarah Palin, and she came on to back up Donald Trump yesterday, and she endorsed him. And she says, hello to all of you farmers and teachers and rock and rollers. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, I don't know if this has been said by anybody other than Hedwig and the Angry Inch within the last 25 years to refer to people.
Rock and rollers. Yeah.
You're doing all right. And when she said rock and rollers, I yelled in my house like, yeah.
That applies to me.
In that bastion of rock and roll culture, Central Iowa.
Yeah, Central Iowa. That was the craziest. Well, Noel Fielding was just in here the other day, and he was like, in England, we don't know how serious that you guys are about Trump. We're really scared, and we don't feel like this is you since you just, elected Obama. And we were like, dude, we really do kind of want to see what happens if these idiots take over.
Did you see the thing with Parliament?
Yeah.
They had this special meeting just to throw Trump under the bus publicly.
They beat up on him, and they have 516,000 people said, let's never let him come to England. and that they're mad at us, but they don't realize how weird we like this, that if you're an American, you're kind of, like, you weren't here for the birth. So you kind of want to see what happens when it crashes, like to be able to say to people, I was there when the United States broke up. That seems like an exciting thing that happened.
And maybe part of you just thinks like, maybe I'll just go somewhere else if things get really bad.
Well, I put away some money. I know I'll do pretty well in the Philippines or someplace like that.
Yeah.
Like I could live pretty large right now if I went to Central America. Yeah. I check, and believe me, I check all the time. I'm like, honey, look at this. Right on the beach. Comes with a cabana boy.
My grandmother was from Ireland, so I can get Irish citizenship through right of return. And I'm like, it might be time to get a European Union passport if this Trump thing goes down.
Yeah.
If I just need to lay low.
Well, I could see you living in Ireland very happily, though.
Yeah, I could go do that. Everybody's rainy and everybody's kind of like half funny, half miserable. I'm into that.
Yeah, and there's, afternoon drinking where nobody's going to make a big deal out of it.
Yeah, I don't drink. That would be a problem for me because I don't drink.
Yeah.
So I think they'd all make fun of me for that.
They're going to make fun of you anyway because they're Irish. They're horrible people.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I remember reading this about Ireland. I don't know if it's still going on, but you could, if you were Irish, you could go to the government and say, I'm working on a novel, and they would just start paying you because they love literature that much and they think that they're past us. So, like, yeah, great. We need people working on novels.
I'm just gonna say,
I love the idea.
I know. I've heard in like Northern Europe they sponsor bands, but like underground bands.
Yeah,
where like you can just go become a government subsidized band. I wish we had that here.
Well, you know what?
The government to pay for my comedy.
We kind of used to back in the 70s, like the whole Seinfeld thing of Larry David. All those guys were living around the same buildings that you could get into cheap, and there would always be buildings in the city for like Broadway people and playwrights and stuff like that because they know like, oh, we care. But now the rent is so high, people are like, no, let's just sell it to, Wall Street guys that'll pay $8,000 a month for no reason.
And then sometimes when they get forced into doing like subsidized housing, they have separate entrances for those people. Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
It's like, you have to walk down the alley in the back and go through the dirt person door. Why don't you go down there through the trash door and feel like what you are? You want to live in a building with us?
You're taking a freight elevator up to your building.
But we share a wall.
Yeah. Nope. And you know that you're not invited to the Christmas party with everybody else.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Chris Gethard's in studio. Is performing at the Arlington Draft House this Friday, January 22nd, and Saturday, January 23rd in Arlington, Virginia. Go to arlingtondrafthouse.com for tickets. Chris is also performing at the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art, January 30th. Go to massmocha.org for tickets. Go to chrisgeth.com for all dates and more information.
Chris Stanley doesn't have to worry about rent like that because you live in the same building. Mm-hmm. Is it the same? Your parents were there, but you're in an apartment that even your grandmother was in?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So
rent
it's
control?
rent stabilized.
Oh.
And like I'm one of 2 people left in the building that are rent stabilized.
Wow.
Everything else
Does
is
the owners
co-op.
of the building hate you so much?
Yeah, plus I smoke.
Ooh.
So they fucking really don't like me.
But they can't do anything about it, huh?
They can't do anything about it. No, like the co-op board's like we can't do anything for him.
Have they offered you money? Have they offered you money to go?
No, they haven't offered me money to go.
What would be the price tag?
Give me like $500,000 and I'll fucking get that.
That's not enough.
Wow.
That's not enough.
So do they like throw you dirty looks and stuff?
Oh yeah, I mean, and plus I've had to go to like board meetings in the building just to like defend my right to smoke. And I've seen people I've never seen. And they just look at me like I'm a piece of shit.
Wow. You should smoke in the board meeting. There's nothing they can do.
They said he's grandfathered in.
You know what? You could probably start a casino in there. So you're saying $500,000 would be enough for him?
I know somebody. Well, I mean, granted it was Manhattan, but I know somebody who their family got pushed out and they took $1.5 million.
Jesus Christ!
And they're working class people.
Astoria.
They were
Astoria.
Yeah,
but Astoria,
and that was also a while ago. That was not like yesterday. That was probably 10, 12 years ago when that happened. So I don't know. I feel like it's got to be more. Yeah, it was Manhattan.
But Astoria's getting really nice now. Like it's getting people are getting.
You have
priced
a
out.
very nice building.
Yeah.
I was surprised I dropped them off once, and I'm like, I thought that your building would be shittier. I'm a little upset about that.
Great upkeep.
Like it's a pre-war, right?
Yeah,
but
it's pre-war.
beautiful.
It's like 6 stories, and it says an elevator and all that shit. And yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, like all the co-op people pay a lot of money to keep it nice. I don't.
So you're just renting.
I'm just
you
renting.
rent from the co-op board, technically?
No, from like the landlord or whatever. It's just like 2 different factions in the apartment: the landlord and the co-op board.
Yeah,
but you couldn't pass your rent on to unless you had a kid.
They'd have to live in the building with me for 2 years. Live in the person would have to live in the apartment with me.
So
for
if
2
you
years.
married, and then she lived with you for 2 years,
Yeah, then
You
her
guys-
name's on the lease.
Does it have to be family? Like, does it have to be like a cousin or something? Or could you just have a friend live there for 2 years and take it over?
It could possibly, if they have, like, look, I had to go through this because they tried to kick me out once. So I had to prove that I had, if you have mail going to your place, this is in New York, for 2 years, that's fucking proof enough.
and this is after your mom passed away. They tried to kick you out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, they're great.
They weren't landlords. They're wonderful people.
Yeah.
They're fun.
Dude, I had an old guy in my building, and he would point at different high rises, and he would say, they burnt those people out, and 5 people died there. And he had lived in my neighborhood for like since, he probably died when he was in his 80s, and he was born in that neighborhood. And he would point at different places and swear to me that people were killed to get that building to turn it into the new glass building. Swore to it. And he had no reason. This guy was so old school New York. I brought up something about the village. He goes, I can't go to the village. It's filled with communists. And I'm going to go, what are you talking about? And I found out he hadn't been to the village since like 1953.
He really didn't go outside of the neighborhood.
Dude, they took him, some of the girls were going over the west side and they put him in a cab and he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that he was on the west side of New York, and he says it was surreal. And yeah, he died 3 blocks from where he was born. That's old school New York, where that little neighborhood becomes your world, And he knew everybody. Our building completely changed after that guy died because he used to introduce everybody to everybody else.
Yeah.
He stood out front every day.
He was always holding court out there. He knew everybody's business.
Everybody's business. He was hilarious. Then he would go like this. You ever see China Beach? That's a hell of a show. He would always have the weirdest things that he was into. And you're like, this is why like those old New York writers wrote those, this is why Neil Simon wrote crazy stories about buildings. Because it's almost like you live in the same home with these people. They kind of become a weird kind of family after a while. But you know this, you go through this with what should have been your audience, and now is this interchangeable part of the show.
Yeah,
that you have.
Totally true. Yeah,
yeah.
They are like family in some cases. It's weird.
But you would never want somebody that wasn't kind of edgy as part of that group. Like it would be weird for you to suddenly have a dude bro.
Yeah, that would probably not go well.
Yeah.
But I'm down to have anybody. I actually feel like the show has like a label on it lately that it's like a hipster thing, and I actually feel like it was never that. I always felt like it was like real rejects. I always felt like like we were on public access. It wasn't cool. Like,
right.
I remember the first time you reached out, I was like, someone like there's someone who respects what we're doing. This is odd. Like, I was always surprised. So I always feel like it really is kind of like fringe people in the city. I'm really proud of that.
Well, my initial thing for it was Warhol in the 60s. Like, at the time that they were doing that, you know, history makes it look like, oh, Lou Reed was there and Andy Warhol, but at the time they weren't those people. You know what I mean? They became those people over the course of this. But at the time they were just like-minded thinking people, like, how can we make a moment happen? Right? Particularly go out of your way. Let's make something happen over the past hour, over the next hour. People have forgotten how to do that. And that was the immediate thing that popped into my head with you guys.
Well, that's really nice.
You know, like, we are going to be alive and strange for an hour, no matter what happens.
I feel like you gotta be sometimes.
Yeah.
And I feel like the knock, I also always feel like the knock is like, oh, New York's not cool anymore. Nothing weird's in New York anymore. And I'm like, I don't know. I just think I think there's probably truth to that overall, but that means the weirder stuff just needs to be as weird as possible, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the artists need to go big. So I wanted to be a part of that. I always just wanted to, like, really rally against that idea. I think New York's always going to have strange elements. There's always going to be oddballs. And we would have people actually just wander off the streets into our studio. We once had a guy, like, show up in the studio, and the episode ended with this random guy who wound up being an actual psychopath hitting me with a leather strap like as hard as he could and yelling at me, and he was like, "You deserve this, sir." And it was like an actual crackpot that wandered off of 59th Street into this building, probably because it was warm.
Yeah.
And it ended with him physically beating me up on a TV show named after me. I'm like, I think New York still has a lot to offer in that respect.
I do too, and I wonder if it even mattered to him after it happened. I wonder if he said to his friends, "Hey, I wandered into a weird TV show and started hitting the guy with a belt yesterday," or did he never think about it?
Like, if you bumped into that guy on the street, would you have to explain that whole thing to him? He wouldn't remember.
Oh, we had this other guy. There's this guy named Don. And I saw him one time. He was like an older Asian guy sitting in our audience, and he was like reading a book on psychology while the show was happening. He's sitting there reading this paperback book, but like an old book you'd find in the dollar bin. It had like some like, you know, like psychoanalysis for the blah, 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 like a weird book. And afterwards I was like, what's that guy's deal? And one of the people who worked at M&M, the public access studio, they were like, oh, that guy shows up and just like goes to random shows. And one time, like, we always have to chase him out. We got to keep an eye on him, because like one time we came here in the morning and he had slept on the roof. He like snuck up on the roof and slept there overnight. And he was like an actual crazy person. And then maybe 2 months later, there was a stretch that we did the last election. For some reason, they let us do their election coverage. We did a 12-hour broadcast on election day. And that guy, Don, showed up and hosted like an hour of the show. I just got up and walked away. And that guy was hosting it. And he was taking calls from people. He's just this weirdo named Don who's like actually crazy. And I loved that. I love that the actual presidential election coverage on their network was hosted by a legitimate schizophrenic human being.
You know, the idea of like, oh, the time it was better before. That is New York as well. Like, if you go back and you think of like when CBGB's was going on, and at the same time Uptown, you had disco at 54. SNL was being born. Stand-up comedy was being done at that time. Basquiat and Julian Schnabel and people like that are painting.
Yeah.
Go back and look at the newspapers, and they basically had the headlines, "New York sucks," every single day. No one said, "Isn't this a wonderful time?" You know, you can see the talking heads for 15 cents. You know, they thought that the city was ruined, the worst place ever.
Yeah, and any great scene like that, for the most part, would have been completely invisible to the majority of people. It's like, it's only, you know, that's also that kind of thinking that you have where you're like, oh, I wish I was there for this particular time period or this scene of music or art. But who's to say if you would have even been able to find it?
Yeah,
had you...
it might be happening somewhere right now.
Exactly.
Well, if you talk to people in Seattle, they say this was so great until Nevermind came out. You know what I mean? Like, then that ruined everything. Because that scene was around for years. It was the explosion. It was everybody else finding out about it that made all the bands go in different directions. And then they really had a scene. No more. You know, the scene was gone.
Yeah, and I think the Austin is kind of that same way where they, like, I think people who were there early or grew up there were like, we had a good thing going. And now, you know, someone like me, like, Austin seems cool. Like, I'm sure that they would be like, oh, no way.
Yeah, we're their nightmare.
Yeah. I'd love to live there.
Yeah. Like the first couple, you know, South by Southwest probably were amazing. And now you go there and you might as well be, you know, Disney World or something. By the way, I remember Disney World before it caught on. It was really good. I mean, you can sit down and talk with Mickey. You know, I mean, just have time with him.
Chris Gethard's in studio. He's performing at the Arlington Draft House this Friday, January 22nd, and Saturday, January 23rd in Arlington, Virginia. Go to arlingtondrafthouse.com for tickets. Hour-long episodes of the Chris Gethard Show return for a second season this spring on Fusion, and Chris Gethard Smith's cover band, possibly called Some Girls' Mothers, is performing February 6th at Suburbia in Brooklyn.
That's getting more elaborate every time you bring it up.
Yeah.
More info on that every time.
Next time it's going to have a set list.
Yeah, we're going to start with Big Mouth Strikes Again.
Now, do you, like you said, as you get close to this, the nerves will come up because you really do want to do
I want to nail
a good show.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, Marcy is going to probably, you know, hear about this.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I've tried to get him on my show so many times, but he's a completely inaccessible human being.
Well, I mean, I think I think that's another reason why he is an actual rock star. You know what I mean? That's somebody that he's not like, hey, this could be good for my career right now if I go out and do some of these things. He doesn't think that way at all. But would your biggest scale for you, what if Morrissey walked in, just happened to show up here at Sirius, and you were eating a cheeseburger? Would you be able to deal with
Oh my God, no, I wouldn't. I would probably like dive under the table. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't eating that.
He might come in and start hitting you with a leather strap.
I've seen him 9 times in concert.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it's also, for a guy who's known for being such like a gentle, emo type guy, his concerts are incredibly violent. People like fight. It's nuts. And I've met him once. He actually signed my arm. That's how I got that tattoo. That's his actual signature. And I tried to talk to him and I was just like shaking. I just like stammered out a couple things. I was like, thank you so much for all your songs. And I was like, all right, whatever, man.
Isn't that the weirdest thing when somebody can turn you into a kid? When you see like those people that you loved when you were young, you never get over.
Yeah.
You know, it never, that's always the biggest thing that ever happened to you.
Do you have people who would do that to you now?
Dude, one time Fez booked the Philadelphia fucking guy who ran the cartoons and used to draw pictures for us when I was a little kid. And when he walked in here, I could have jumped behind my mom's skirt and held on to it.
Whoa.
I couldn't believe it when I saw him in person. But there, I brought up the story because Bowie just passed away, but I was at this thing where Bowie walked into a room and I knew what I felt like to be at this exhibit that when Bowie came in, but I picked up the fact that the whole room just fell silent because a guy was walking up the steps towards us. And a room full of people who were comfortable, that, you know, Lou Reed and Laurie Anderson and Julian Snobble and Peter Beard were all there. But when Bowie walked up, just, you heard the silence coming at you.
Wow.
And that's because that was basically a room that grew up being in love with that guy.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that works for music, and I think it also works for sex symbols, too. Like, I think a sex symbol from your youth came in, and no matter how old that person is now, would mean so much more to you than whoever is the like hot shit right now. Like, I think that would floor you, where you would be like so nervous, and that person could be like way older, whatever. I think
Yeah.
it would actually freak me out way more. Like somebody that
Who would it be for you?
Well, I saw Val Kilmer on the street, and this is like fat current Val Kilmer, and I nearly died.
Wow.
I actually went into a shoe store. I saw him go into a shoe store. I followed him into a shoe store, and I held a man's shoe in front of my face and stared at him like that for 20 minutes. And this is like,
Yeah, today's Val Kilmer.
chubby, kind of
Yeah.
puffy Val Kilmer. And I was like, whoa.
58-year-old Val
Yeah,
Kilmer.
and I was like, whoa, that is crazy. But any, like, attractive, whoever is the hot dude who would, like, walk by down the hall right now, I'd be like, oh, yeah, it's that guy. And that would mean way less to me than that. I was freaking out.
I think you're right about, because remember when Bo Derek came in?
Jesus.
Oh, yeah,
I
that
know
was
the
crazy.
night before I was tossing and turning. And you don't want to say something like, I jacked off to your
I did
Playboy.
an episode of Broad City that's coming up this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm supposed to spoil it, but Vanessa Williams.
Sure,
was a part of
she
it, and
was.
that was like right in my teenage years,
Yeah.
like preteen, junior high school.
Well, the beauty of that is that the lesbian thing wasn't even that big, and she had taken those pictures that, and it was even silhouette, but it was incredibly sexy. But mainstream America was like really
mad,
fucked up with it.
That
You know
would
what I mean?
not
Like
even be an issue
out.
today, right?
No, I don't think anybody could say our Miss America can't have a sexual past, let alone can't have done modeling. It's modeling is what she did. And America turned on its side, turned on its fucking side, freaked out about it. But she is a perfect person because, she looks older, but she's still
Oh my god,
stunning,
striking.
Yeah,
couldn't even really speak.
Yeah, Joey, who would it be for you? Who would be the? I'm going to look at you and say Eric Estrada, or is that a little before your
That's
time?
exactly right.
Yeah.
No, for me it would be two sports guys, Kevin Garnett and Randy Moss. Those I would drop.
They do come in here though.
I know. And if
Yeah.
I ever saw them, I would melt into the ground.
I'd see who would it be for Kashmir. Kashmir, who would have been the sex symbol for you that changed everything?
That changed everything. I would have to say, honestly, it's kind of embarrassing. Will from Will and Grace. That's like a classy man. A classy man. I want a 2-bedroom apartment.
So was Will from Will and Grace would be your guy?
Yeah.
What's he doing now? He's
major.
still around though, right?
Yeah, I
He's
think.
gotta still be working.
Yeah, he's trying a new spy show, like a crime investigating show or something.
Do you watch it? Do you stick with him? Is he still your guy?
I watch the commercials for it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I go back for the reruns on Lifetime for that Will and Grace.
You just love the Will and Grace.
It's great. It's a classic. It's a classic, man.
That's one that I missed when it was on regular TV. And then who's the girl that became such a famous
Megan Mullally?
Yeah.
I found out her, I discovered her on Party Down. And I'm like, oh man, there's this woman on Party Down. It's just amazing. And everyone's like, she's one of the biggest stars ever. I'm like, oh really? She's great. But I still don't think I've ever seen the Will and Grace.
I've seen every goddamn episode.
Really?
Because my mom loved it.
Dude, you must have stayed in with your mom so much when you were younger.
She loved that 11 o'clock slot on TV.
Would you guys just have the one TV?
Yeah, just one television. Yeah. So it was,
Because
there you
he's
go,
always saying, I had to watch this show with my mom. But you and your mom must have just sat there.
Mom. A lot of TV watching. But yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
every. Megan Mullally was the best part of that goddamn show, by the way.
Is she?
Will
Yeah,
and
she's
Grace
the best
and Jack.
part of everything. Her timing's
pretty
incredible.
Jack.
Yeah. Vito, you look like you're trying to get in this with your Austin 16. Who's it going to be?
Well, this Friday night, I was on Twitter, and Jeff Garcia, my favorite football player of all time, followed me on Twitter. And that's
that's weird because he has almost 700 followers.
So that was my big celebrity
Yeah.
moment. I was so excited. It was a great day for me.
Well, that'll work for you. It is true that you're sports stars, too. When you were younger, you'll never get past them.
Yeah.
I met John Starks, and it was like
That'll do it
I
for
felt
you,
like I was
right?
talking to a superhero.
Yeah.
Like someone I read about in a comic book. It was nuts. It was nuts.
Yeah.
I got to interview him. Me and Sharpling actually interviewed him together. Me and Tom interviewed John Starks.
Now I know another thing I have to do.
Mine, Larry Johnson. If you can get Ewing, that'll top.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to work on.
Seriously,
right now.
Chris, we need your help.
Sharpling. By the way, you had the best time ever?
I had such a blast.
And that was an award-winning show when you were on it.
I know that specific episode got some love for being like one of the best episodes of the year of 2015.
Yeah,
all right.
I think I helped.
Did it? Because it said musical episodes.
Yeah, it probably had nothing to do with me. But I was there, and my name was listed.
That's true.
So I kind of take.
I agree. Though I think one of the best things is when musicians come into a radio show and just sit there and play acoustically. It's one of the best things about having this job.
Yeah.
I love when that happens.
It is really cool because then you're like, I'm at a tiny show right now.
Yeah, it is. And there are people that you might think, oh, I've never been into that guy, but when you see him playing like that, remember when Rick Springfield came in here and everybody's like, what the fuck?
Ridiculous.
Rick Springfield is amazing. Yes, that's how he got to be a star.
Lindsey Buckingham. I had no idea what I was in fucking store for. I was like, holy shit.
Well, Lindsey
Tear it up.
Buckingham was crazy because you get to see somebody who could play guitar better than anyone you've ever met. And then you can also see that he's like a nut, like an insane person who's dedicated his life to just one thing.
Yeah.
And then you can forget about that when you just see them as a pop star, you know? But they became a pop star for a reason. They're really good at something.
Yeah.
That's what's always great about people that maybe you weren't a fan of, but then you get to meet and you get to see where their heat comes from. I remember one time Sinbad was in, and the O&A guys were like, he was really funny. I'm like, yeah, he's fucking Sinbad. You know what I mean? That's how he got on TV and got to do all that stuff. Gallagher was another one when I did the Gallagher Unmasked. Afterwards, everyone was like, that dude is, by the way, he's perfect for you, man.
You think we could get Gallagher?
I know we could get Gallagher for you. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it, and this is a kind of an anti-Tom Sharpling thing, because he can't get you anybody.
He could never get me Gallagher. Are you kidding?
But
he could barely get me Carrot Top.
I am going to go out of my way, because I actually know someone who's doing some stuff with him. But I'll try to get and find out when he's in New York and
put us in touch.
Yeah, put you guys in touch.
I will warn you, he might not like me because I did years ago do a video called Gallagher 3.
Yeah.
Because you know Gallagher 2 is his brother who smashed fruit and they got in a fight. I did a thing where I was smashing fruit and accepting money for it and challenging Gallagher to sue me.
Dude, you could do that act in front of him.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that. If we could set up a situation where I could challenge Gallagher's right to comedically smash fruit on behalf of all comedians. That was my whole point. If it gets a laugh, then comedians have to have access to. We got to be able to smash fruit.
I think you got every right to.
I would love to sit down and talk with Gallagher.
He's really, and he hasn't been well in the past couple of years. He's had multiple health problems, and so he wants to try to make sure that people understand all the ideas that he has to change the country.
He's got a lot of political views.
He's got a lot of ideas.
Honest to God, if you can reach out, I'll put him on TV in a heartbeat. I would love to talk with Gallagher about politics. I'd love to have Gallagher on my show. No comedy, just politics.
Well, that could be the idea, but you don't know what's going to happen once he does show up.
Totally.
Anything could.
Works for you.
Anything could.
I'm into it.
Happen. But that would be great.
You could tell him this. If you pass on word to Gallagher himself or to his people, whatever the chain is, free reign, whatever he wants it to be, we can give Gallagher an episode of a TV show.
That's how he does things anyway, though. It doesn't matter. You son of a bitch. But the thing is, he's not leaving when the show's over. Just know that.
We'll hang out.
He'll be there for quite some time.
Great.
It'll go on and on. One time, and this had to be, I was working in radio in Florida, and it was a place that was a brand new, beautiful theater, and Gallagher was, and my job, I was going to come there and say, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming, 95 YNF, and here's Gallagher. That's all I had to do. I show up there, And it's this beautiful place. And I'm in this massive, if you've ever been in a beautiful playhouse, it's so dark and massive behind because there's normally all these sets. And it's totally black. And I'm walking towards the stage for the sound check. And I just hear this, "You son of a bitch, I'll burn this fucking place down. I'll own this place tonight. I'll fucking put my foot up your ass and turn it sideways and fuck you." And so I come up and there's some people standing there. I'm like, what's going on with Gallagher? And there's this beautiful red velvet place with seats and stuff. And they're like this, they're telling them that you can't bust up the chocolate milk. And that was, and when I interviewed him for an Unmasked, he's like, "It's fucking chocolate milk. What's the problem?" He just started like he remembered it. Either he remembered it, or is that just the type of thing that happened on almost a daily basis?
Oh my God. He still feels so strongly about.
Yeah. And I was watching him, and he was jumping up and down, and occasionally his shirt would come up, and I could see that he had stitches in there, like for a baseball bit. Like he had some kind of bit drawn on his belly, and while he was going to kick everybody's ass, you would just see the stitching of a baseball. He was so, and that was him at his real peak of power, you know?
Right.
And that was a lot of years ago, but he's still one of the most unique people that you'll ever see.
Way into it.
Yeah.
I already have about 11 ideas of things we could do with Gallagher.
All right, and we'll work on that. Dude, I know you got a meeting. You got second season to go to.
Yeah.
We're all real proud of you, too.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here, and you've always had my back, and it means a lot. So thank you, guys.
That's great. Let's go out with his, what we hope to be his new theme song.
Oh, I love this.
Chris, why don't you do a nice plug, too?
Chris Gethard's performing at the Arlington Draft House this Friday, January 22nd, and Saturday, January 23rd in Arlington, Virginia. Go to arlingtondrafthouse.com for tickets. An hour-long episodes of The Chris Gethard Show return for a second season this spring on Fusion. Go to thechrisgethardshow.com to watch past episodes and for more information. And Chris Gethard Smith's cover band, Some Girls' Mothers, is performing February 6th at Suburbia in Brooklyn. They're probably opening with Big Mouth Strikes Again.